How could I mess up my broadcast so badly? Come on, Mike. Queen G1.
That's it. We're ending the show. This is never going to be seen on demand again. We're done.
Right. Done. Cut. Delete it all. It never happened.
Today is a ChessKid holiday. This is our Bastille Day. It's our Independence Day. This is the 2020 ChessKid Youth Speed Chess Championship Finals. We are here with FIDE Master Marco Materia and National Master Ryo Chen, and of course my co-host, International Master David Proust, the playful squirrel. Say hi, David. David, it's great to have you here, and that's what squirrels look like in real life, I promise you, okay? Ryo, are you excited?
Yes.
All right. Marco, are you excited?
Marco, comment ça va? T'es
Bien.
excité pour aujourd'hui?
Comment?
Tu te sens comment aujourd'hui?
Bien.
Feels
Okay,
good.
very good. I'm sure both players are a little bit nervous, but they've both played 2 matches to get here. A little bit easier time of it in the semifinals for Marco. He won 13.5 to 2.5. It all came down to Ryo's final game, though. He had to hold the draw in the final game, which he did by virtue of a stalemate, but not a mistake stalemate, like a real stalemate where both players played correctly. It was a fantastic semifinals. Well, I'm looking forward to this. We're only going to ask the players a couple of questions because they want to get started. A reminder of the format. It is going to be 2 hours of chess, 75 minutes of 5+1, 45 minutes of 3+1, and the winner gets 1,000 big ones. That's more than David or me are making today. So hopefully they remember, it's like when you win money at the poker table and you tip your dealer. David, you think we're going to get a little tip today?
I don't know. I think that they deserve to get more because they're cuter than us.
That is a good point. By the way, I'm not going to say loser, but the second place finisher still gets $500 in addition to all of the previous money that they've won to this point. And the winner also gets lessons with a top 20 player. Now, there's only 2 top 20 players that we can think of that speak French, MVL and Kramnik, so that is going to be pretty good if we get either of those. Ryo, we have a little bit more of a selection for you. Ryo, that's my first question. If you win, now we can't promise any player, right? They have to say yes, but who would you like lessons from? Ryo, if you win,
I get to choose from any of the 20 players?
No, you don't get to choose. We're going to work together.
If you got to choose, who would you like to choose?
Right.
Wait, but if I say what I want to choose, are you still going to choose what I said? Or
we'll take
if
that
you
into
answer
account.
the question, Mike will be able to continue to the next part of the show.
Pretend Mike has superpowers and can get anybody he wants. Who would you like if we could get that person?
And then Kramnik and maybe some other guys.
Okay, a non-Kramnik. So you just basically want, give me 7 world champions, Mike, and we'll call it a day.
Kramnik and some other guys. They're just guys.
David, could you ask Marco the same question?
Ok, Marco, si tu gagnes, tu peux avoir un leçon avec un joueur des top 20 dans le monde. Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un en particulier que tu aimerais apprendre avec?
No.
No, nobody in particular.
Okay. Well, that makes my life a little bit easier. Now, when we were setting up...
C'est mieux que ce soit en français.
Le principal, c'est que ce soit en français?
Ouais.
Yeah, so he says the important is that the lesson would be in French.
There you go.
So you were locked into that.
Yeah. I have it on good authority that Marco's regular coach is a 2700 GM. So he's already doing fine in life. David, could you ask Marco one more question? We were setting up for the show, and I was choosing my background today, and I went with Peshka as my chemistry teacher because when I was choosing it, Marco had a big smile on his face. So I'm doing it for Marco. David, could you ask Marco what he thinks about my background here?
Yeah. Marco, qu'est-ce que tu penses du fond que Mike utilise avec le pion et l'expériment chimique?
Le pion, il cuisine pour gagner, quoi.
Yeah. He says the pawn is preparing to win. He's making magical potions so that he can win every game. That's why he's so happy.
Exactly. Fun Master Mike has some special chemistry. I think in chemistry class, you never mix the green with the yellow. Okay, important safety tip, kids. The green and the yellow, don't mix them up. Okay.
Green and yellow.
All right, we'll ask Ryo one more question just to balance it out. Ryo, a serious chess question. Okay. Did you learn anything in that previous match with Alice that you think is going to help you today?
I've played it quicker.
What's that?
Quicker.
Play quicker? Okay. Yeah, Alice was pretty fast, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, both of you have had the chance to see each other's previous games. So each of you have had about 30 games to review in addition to all the other games in the database. So I'm betting both of you know each other's styles pretty well. But we're going to end the chit chat. We're going to end the TikTok, David, and we're going to get to some real chess. David, are you ready?
OK. Le temps de parler est fini maintenant. C'est le temps de se battre. Oui?
Can I leave computer audio?
Yeah, we're going to leave computer audio. So good luck, Ryo. Bon chance, Marco.
OK, Marco, tu peux quitter l'audio pour ne plus nous entendre. Et ça va commencer. Oui.
Okay, I'm going to mute both players. And when I can confirm that their system audio is disconnected so they can't hear me, then we'll be able to start. Okay, Ryo should not be able to hear me. I see his system audio is disconnected. And we're waiting on Marco to do the same. And actually, yeah, we forgot to flip the coin. Sorry. So we need to bring them back.
Do you have your ruble or do you have...
I've got the ruble. Yeah, sorry. I was so excited to play chess, Playful Squirrel, that I forgot about my coin flip.
I'm always so excited to play chess. I could forget everything.
Right. Okay, so if you would just let Ryo know in the chat, we forgot to flip the coin. So, okay, we're going to have, I think Marco picked during the semifinals. So Ryo's going to pick this time. Ryo, do you want heads, which is going to be the eagle, okay, the double eagle, and tails is the number 10. So do you want heads or tails?
Heads.
Heads. Okay, I'm going to flip it, turning it over, and it is the double eagle, the Russian double eagle. That's the heads. So tell me, Ryo, do you want to choose your color in game one or defer to the tiebreak?
White in game one.
White in game one. Okay, as a reminder to everybody else, if it goes to a tiebreak, then Marco will get first choice of color in the tiebreak. But for game one, Ryo, whose screen name is Ryo 2010, he will get the white pieces. Okay, so now I will ask the players to mute. Yes, Ryo has a question?
No.
No question. Okay. Remember, you can't steal my commentary job. Okay. They actually pay me for this, Ryo. Your job is to play chess. Okay, Ryo, I'm muting you. Please turn off your system audio. And David, if you could please remind Marco how to turn off his system audio.
OK. Marco, tu sais, pour enlever le son, il faut aller en bas à côté du petit microphone, cliquer sur la flèche et puis quitter audio, c'est la deuxième option en bas.
Okay, just give Marco a second here. Probably so eager to play chess. I don't see it off yet.
He's acting like he doesn't hear, though.
Okay. Marco, can you hear me? Okay, he must have his...
Est-ce que tu nous entends encore?
Yeah, he must have his main computer audio off, which is also fine. Also fine, okay? So I'm gonna mute both players and we're ready to go. So I'm gonna ask my team to start game one and Ryo will take the white pieces in game one. We'll also start the match clock.
All right, it's on.
Indeed, I see the first game. And Ryo again is Ryo 2010. Marco's name is Fit Soft Rain, the only FIDE master in the tournament. And we are getting not exactly a reprisal of the semifinals, but what are you expecting? A lot of Sicilians today, David? We had a lot in the semifinals.
Well, if Ryo's consistency in the past is any indication, we're going to get open Sicilian every game from him. Looks like he's prepared for this line here with that instant knight a4. So he's looked up which Sicilian Marco plays.
It's also going to be interesting when Ryo plays black, because if you remember our post-game interview last Saturday, he said the reason he kept playing the King's Indian is because that's all he knows. Now, was Marco listening to that, and did somebody translate that piece of information for Marco? I don't know, but we're going to find out.
We'll find out if either of his coaches speak English.
That's a good point. Now, we know his mom speaks English because I converse with her over email in English. So I don't know. I think both of their families are pretty chill and probably not like, hiring a team of translators and code breakers to try to get a competitive advantage. Okay. But in game one,
every move of the adversary.
Right. In game one, it was looking like a pretty juicy hole on d6. So the reason for rook to b6 is, of course, to cover that hole. And I could see black playing d6 to further cover that hole coming up pretty soon.
Yeah. Now, I generally, and I think opening theory agrees with me, but we'll see what Rashad says. But I generally believe that these positions are very nice for white. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Ryo's able to really show, a good mastery of this position with white, which I think he's prepared for, and what kind of pressure that puts on Marco's opening repertoire.
Yeah, this position doesn't have all of the dynamism of a lot of open Sicilians, but I agree. I like the two bishops. We could argue about who's got better pawns all day, but for me, the two bishops always give that slightly lasting advantage. So pawn to d6 did happen, and the bishop is going to actually has a choice of diagonals, interestingly.
Usually it goes to c3.
Right. If you go to b2, you could be hit with c4 one day, maybe.
Even right now.
Is that because he might want to put his pawn on c4? Although that's not very good for the light squared bishop to play pawn c4.
Yeah, I think he did this because he wants to preserve the option of c4, but black can play c4 right away here.
Okay, let's take a look at this. So c4, you can never take with the pawn because of the pin on the bishop. So after takes, well, yeah, you have to take. And what I didn't see was that the center pawn is hanging. And that looks like a net positive for black to get these two connected center pawns. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It trades the c pawn for the e pawn and establishes a good situation for black in the center, I think, where they can play d6, d5, putting their pawns on the opposite color of their dark squared bishop. And then they should be able to oppose bishops on f6. And I think this gives black very good defensive chances to do this transition.
That's a great point. That knight on e4 is not worse than the light squared bishop counterpart. Back to the game, though, we did not have c4. We had rook to d8. And, well, I don't think it's black's hiding his intention to play d5 instead.
Seems to be what he's looking at. Usually on d5, white will respond with e5 and then attack on the king side.
Okay, so c4 did happen. This was the one advantage of putting your bishop on b2 is you could play this Maroczy-bind sort of stranglehold structure. However, my point is that the bishop is just needing a home. Now, I think what white would love to do is put the bishop on f3 and accomplish e5. If white could trade this pawn for this pawn, that would create a permanent weakness here, and the bishop would enjoy a lovely diagonal. Of course, there's a couple structural problems. One is that your queen's going to be hanging whenever you play e5.
Yeah, but the thing is, since white was given time to play c4, if black ever plays d5, white can just trade all the pawns. And in that resulting position, you'll notice that black has like no central pawn on a light square. So there's nobody to rein in the bishop on e2. That means the d5 is kind of no longer a good plan for black, and he has to come up with another plan in this position.
Okay, so bishop f3 was thinking about pushing the pawn. Now, this is, I think, kind of a net win for white, because one thing black was thinking about doing, if we can just back up a move, if black could have ever moved the knight and accomplished the bishop trade, and then this knight could square off against this bishop, that would be great. However, after e5, which is what happened in the game, it's hard to imagine the dark squared bishops trading. And of course, we've got a permanent backward pawn here. So bishop c3.
Ryo just played a great move, Mike. Bishop c3. Not because bishop a5 is unstoppable. Black has room to play rook c6 and save the rooks. But because I mentioned that black needs a plan other than d5 here. And the best plan for black, the next best plan for black would have been a5, a4.
Good point.
If white can delay or prevent it for a while, that's really going to help him with his plan, which is to play f4.
Right. So black, if he trades the a for the a pawn by getting it to a4, then he will finally have a target, which is the b pawn. As it stands right now, white's the only one with a target, which is the d6 pawn. However, kind of hard to imagine how you ever win that pawn. It's like every single black piece is guarding it. Now, David, are we going to see some kind of around the world scenario where this knight takes 700 moves to get to its dream square?
That would be tricky. By the way, rook c8 was played because there was a threat of bishop takes e5 with back rank mate. So white actually had a trick for a moment there tactically. The overall plan still looks like it needs to be a kingside pawn expansion for white to move f4 at some point.
Okay, so g3. Now the bishop can go back to g2 and then f4, just like the playful squirrel said.
I think Rashad's going to be really happy because Ryo's playing this first game really, just sort of like clean GM level moves. I'm not a GM, so in theory, I'm not allowed to judge that. But I've seen enough GM games. Looking at this, I can see that everything he's doing is very, very high class, answering all the strategic requirements of the position.
And for those of you wondering who Rashad is, first of all, where were you the first 2 weeks of this competition? Grandmaster Rashad Babayev is gracious enough to join us for the third week in a row. Of course, it doesn't hurt that his student keeps advancing in the competition, his student being Ryo Chen, who went from not being able to play chess to chess master in 2 years. Rashad promises the same level of efficacy for all of his students. No, just kidding. But Rashad is going to join us again starting around game 3. So we'll be happy to get his thoughts on the preparation. And by the way, David, in my post-semifinals article, I did make a mention of the clash of styles. Marco being a very boa constrictor type player, but it almost looks like Ryo was doing the same to his opponent in this first game.
Yeah, you can see both players absolutely know the strategic imperatives of the position, right? Rook a8, it's really obvious that Marco knows what his plan should be. We'll see if white plays a move like bishop a5 here to try and slow that down, or whether Ryo says it's time to play bishop g2, a5, f4.
Yeah, in fact, if we look at this move, even if black is able to accomplish the movement of this rook and the trade of bishops, which traditionally is his worst bishop, this is also the glue that's holding together his pawn structure. So even the trade of bishops has a bit of an issue you've got to worry about.
Yeah.
And of course,
also, after the rook moves and the bishop comes to d8, white could then retreat his bishop and the black pieces might just be more awkward there. So
yeah, in fact, after bishop g2, the bishop's going to come around to h3 and the rook is caught in the crossfire.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the live game. We have a new move.
See how they do it. Okay, he did throw in bishop a5, and now bishop g2.
Exactly, and the rook did go to e8, probably because he did see the problem with this diagonal. Okay, so the knight
he's avoiding that awkwardness, and he has his eyes on the around the world. You mentioned knight b8 to c6 with the tempo would totally get black into the game. So he's playing with two plans at the same time there, right? Knight c6 could be a5, a4, could be knight d4. We'll see if white's pressure on the f-file comes too soon for black to achieve all that. Normally it should, but it's hard to be sure.
I think if you're black, you have to sit because you always want to answer pawn takes with knight takes. And at the moment, you can't play bishop f6 because you'll drop this pawn. So rook a7 is kind of just his way of doing nothing.
That's showing that black was not in time to achieve the things they would want to play. They would want to play bishop f6 to free the knight. They would want to play knight b8, but bishop f6 drops the d pawn and knight b8 allows fe, de, and then a move like queen to d5, and black's stuff gets attacked too soon.
This is very tenuous. I think bishop h3 ruins black's position in some ways because you'll be immediately threatening to take the knight and win the pawn. And it just feels like black's position is being held together by some rubber bands, that are being stretched.
Yeah. And Ryo's being very careful about it. He's looking for a scenario where bishop h3, knight f6 doesn't counterattack his e-pawn so that he can really advance as he wants to. Ooh, nice. He's increasing it to the maximum. This is really a top-class game from Ryo.
Okay, the knight is finally completing his own personal Tour de France, and he's going to try to get to d4. So pawn takes happens. Notice he waited for the knight to move before taking. So black was wanting to make progress in his position, but the very first progress move also allowed his pawns to become, what's the French word for raunchy? That's a tough one. They don't teach you that one in French level 4.
No. But what I was noticing is that they've also gotten low on the clock over this period of time, right? All these excellent moves have not come completely for free.
Exactly.
Marco's sacking a pawn, but it's not prospectless because with the dark square bishop trade and a knight on d4, it's not necessarily easy for white.
That is true. Ryo is true to form, and he is playing faster than his opponent, although Both players are going to be in a very quick mutual time scramble here. So this could be decided by somebody's slip of the hand in game one.
They're contesting the D file.
Okay, everything on the board is pinned. That's my analysis.
Yeah, and I think that black is equal. I don't think he's losing down this pawn. He could just hold the position. He's choosing not to.
Exactly.
H6 can be a good move to throw in these kind of positions once the files start to open. But he's got an agenda.
And if you'll recall back to the earlier matches, I remember Marco holding some very tough positions with less than 1 second on his clock in the last match. Okay, there's just this massive bind that's been built up.
Yeah, White's giving back that pawn now.
Uh-oh. He's doing
counter.
something he never
Queen
does.
F8. With 1 second, he finds it.
Marco never
Stays in
takes
there.
pawns if he allows counterplay, but he just took this B pawn, which allowed all kinds of counterplay.
Removing. Queen trade.
Okay, rooks are going to be crashing through on the 7th rank. White's got the healthier
Oh, there
path.
was a back rank mate.
Oh, it was missed. I didn't even see it.
He could have traded rooks on B7. We saw the lack of that H6 move.
Oh, Marco had less than 1 second when he completed that move. He's up a pawn.
Oh, yeah. He had 0.4 seconds. Wait, how can he have less than 1 second after moving? That doesn't seem possible.
Because it's magic.
Wow.
Oh, this is going to be White stalemating himself.
Yeah,
How does Black make progress here?
I don't know.
Yeah, actually, if you're Black, you could lose the game if you're not careful. Okay, White found this trick. He played rook takes e2, and now trading. I don't know if your king gets out. G5 is gonna happen. The king runs away. And is it a win for White?
White's winning. Yeah, White's winning now. That's crazy. I tried so hard to win it.
F6 wins because even if you sacrifice the F pawn after G6, you get what I call the perfect position. Okay, pawn takes would win there also because you have the opposition. And wow, it all comes down to the king and pawn endgame. Queen G3, accurate to the end. What a first game. And we see Ryo throw his hands up in the air there.
Oh my goodness.
27 moves of pure awesomeness.
Yeah. That was an incredible level they showed in that first game. I am impressed. I can see why it's the championship. They're even better than they were 2 weeks ago.
I agree.
And 1 week ago.
Check my notes, David, but I don't recall Marco ever being down in any match. So he drops the first game. But of course, you know, he lost the coin toss, right? It's his chance to get even as White. And not only do we see a King's Indian, but we see a repeat of the Petrosian, which is exactly what Alice played, I believe, every game as White.
Oh my gosh, the moves are coming fast. G3 instantly.
This is of a different variety, but
E3 looks good.
We were wondering before the match how much he might have prepped, and this must be largely prepped to go into the exact same variation.
Oh, yes, I cannot believe how far they've prepped.
Yeah, 17 moves and only 4 seconds off the clock. I mean, this is like a Nakamura, Wesley So 2015 Sinkfield Cup. No, it's not actually, but I'm trying to think of what was the last high-level mainline King's Indian encounter. I'm sure there's been tons since the game I just referenced.
There have probably been a few, but wow.
Yeah.
Just wow.
Okay, so knight e4, clamping down on this square. And this is not a pawn structure that is necessarily indicative of a King's Indian. If you grabbed me off the street, David, and showed me this position, I would not necessarily bet my life this was a King's Indian. But of course, we know the truth. We know it was.
Yeah, so knight e4, rook e4, bishop d3. It looks like White's going to come streaming through with queen c2 and bishop h7 and knight g6 and so forth, that kind of attack on the light squares. But after bishop d3, Black can try to move maybe g2 or queen h4. Queen h4, knight g2.
G2, is he going to take the rook? How nasty is that? I mean, yeah, what did he take on e4? He took a rook, sorry.
Yeah. I don't know, something tricky. Black's going to have to throw something at White there.
Let's go back to the game.
Let's see what he's done.
And just
White
clue you in on what happened.
He's going to hide his king behind that G pawn. That looks pretty scary.
Yeah, in fact,
everyone would be up for that. There's rook f4 here.
Exactly. In fact, it was played.
Right? Okay, it was too scary. I don't think White could do this.
Yeah,
I don't think White could do this.
Just to show everybody at home, if the king goes back, it was mate in 2. Check, king over, and that's all she wrote. So the king is going on a walk, and guess what? In Nakamura Wesley So, the king also went on a walk. So king f3. Uh-oh, knight's getting to e5. Now, black is technically down the exchange, but I don't know that anybody in the world wants to be white here.
This is over. This is over. He's preparing to cut off the king's escape at d3 with knight c5 even, right? Because he's got, if the king goes to e4, he's got knight c5 now.
Yeah, in fact, even knight e5, king up, queen g2 is still not quite clear because the bishop can block, but but kind of it must be winning. You could actually just play knight takes f3, rook takes bishop g4. So if we give white
queen h1 here to try and defend.
Queen h1, okay, that's a better defense. I was just trying to show my line. That's why I gave white a passing move. But anyway, queen h1 clearly is more useful than my move.
Gotta do something. Okay, Marco's played something. Let's see what he's done.
Okay, let's go back to the game.
Bishop c3.
Okay, preparing to trade the knight when it gets to e5 is my thought.
Yeah.
You could almost play it anyway, and then maybe take with the pawn, and the rook is kind of, married to the g4 square forever. And if you play rook here, queen check, I mean, I don't know, that looks pretty good to me.
That looks done.
So Ryo might go 2-0 here, and he played rook f4 with authority. He's even if he takes a little bit of time off his clock here, it's for good reason, because he just has to make sure he's going to continue the attack.
You did say you wanted to play faster today, but when you get a position with the opponent's king on f3 or anything that you can clearly recognize as being critical, it's worth putting in some time.
Well said. And he didn't play the queen g2 line. Let's just go back for a second, because it's my thought, if you don't save the bishop, you're just down material. And if you do, knight takes looked pretty convincing. And probably this wins too. I was going to put my bishop here, but I like this one. It's more
that's
fancy.
Even much nicer than bishop g4. Much, much nicer.
Yeah, and if the king goes here or here, it's the same checkmate, folks. It's mate no matter whether the king's on e6 or g6.
That's vicious. Okay, so he should have done that. The move in the game gave white time to play queen h1, which probably was his best defense.
Right. Here he's taking my ChessKid videos too literally. We talk about inviting all the pieces to the party. He wanted to get that rook to e8 so bad, he didn't realize his existing army was good enough. But
not going to checkmate him till the rook has had a chance to dance too.
You know what, though? Let's give white a passing move. Check. And if you block with the bishop, you lose material. If your
the
king
job the queen wouldn't do.
Right. If your king goes here, oh, the horror. I don't even want to talk about that move.
Yeah, knight c6, double checkmate? No, the king's got d3.
Right. I mean,
still some stuff to think about.
I feel okay, but if the king moves here, then the rook plays, and then we just want to see all the fun here.
Walking him up the board.
I wasn't actually sure it was mate. I'll be honest with you, David.
I know. I was looking for it too. I was like, it's got to be there, but where?
I looked at the notation panel just to make sure knight g6 was mate.
Pieces are on such weird squares. Is this really checkmate?
Okay, let's see what actually happened there. The queen's traded, and he did take the knight. We can understand why. The king needs to be able to get back home, and he's sacrificing the exchange just to get out of dodge.
Yeah, if he saved the rook, there would have been bishop b2 check, taking the whole rook on a1. So this was definitely right. And for the first time in a long time, it looks like white is not going to be checkmated.
Yeah, in fact, maybe white's not even worse, because this pawn is going down, I think, after bishop f3. Not king here because of rook takes pawn check. Bishop g3, I think, corrals the pawn, because if rook check, then your king goes to g3. Not bishop f1, then rook f8 check would be a massive problem.
That would be quite a blunder, yeah. Bishop f1, it's pinned. I can play a fancy move.
Right, exactly. Wow, well, you know what? Even if it's not a draw, if you offered me this position 5 moves ago as white, I'd say, where do I sign up?
Yeah. Sold, sold, sold.
Right, so I wouldn't say that Ryo played too quickly. He did take his time at some critical moments, but the bishop to d7 move is one that he's probably going to want back.
Yeah.
Yeah, the queen can sneak around. You know, it's funny when I do these broadcasts, David, I'm just convinced the kids are always going to be better at me at tactics, and I'm only here to explain endgames.
Good move. I was thinking, what about king moves and then if bishop f3, rook g8? I suppose white has king f3 and eventually king f2. But if black trades everything, does the h-pawn win this endgame? Yes, the black king just goes to e5 and white loses.
Like I just said, we're here for endgames, David. Thank you.
Right. So tell us, is that right, Mike? Would that be a win?
Yes, that would be a win.
All right.
Outside pass pawn, kids. And
No.
white was duly afraid and played e4, putting his pawn on the same color as his bishop. Usually a no-no, but, well, he had to do something, and bishop takes g2 was not that something.
You never take on g2. How's white going to get a draw?
The purpose of this move, I think, is to be able to play king here and not drop the e-pawn in any variation.
Okay, so he wants to chase that bishop off. And if rook to g8, maybe he'll play e5. But then there's rook f8 check, and it doesn't quite work out. Man, it's desirable.
Right, so king would go here?
Yeah, and then, oh, and then maybe it's not even clear here.
Yeah, I want to play rook takes bishop, pawn takes e5 and be a hero, but that's not actually a way to be a hero. Okay, so back to the game. This is the live position. Quite an exciting opening couplet. I dare say that these are more exciting games than the adult version of the Speed Chess Championship.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean,
here's what I like, David. The level is so incredibly high, yet there is that little bit more of a human element. It's not like, you know, Caruana, Carlsen, where they're just going to be machines and they get a winning position. So
it's true. It's true. There is a little more human. That is nice. All right,
so
so c5. Ryo decides that taking on c5 and allowing the passed pawn to move forward to e6 is not worth it, and he creates space for his king to centralize, I think, which is a really great thing to do in the endgame.
Exactly. And then if the white king ever goes wandering versus the g-pawn, the black king will be very happy to post up on e5 like Patrick Ewing. Or no, I need to come up with a more modern NBA player. I don't really watch the NBA anymore. They took away the postseason.
Yeah.
Yeah, they decided 24 teams could play for the playoffs, but not my Charlotte Hornets. I don't know why.
Does that matter?
What matters is that baseball is back. That's all we're going to talk about the second half of the show, David. Try to keep up.
All right. So who cares about the Hornets? It's all about whatever the Charlotte baseball team is.
Well, we don't actually have a Major League Baseball team, but we'll talk about that later too.
Do you have a minor league team?
You know what's funny? The Toronto Blue Jays thought about playing in Charlotte because they're not allowed to go back and forth across the border. But they ended up choosing Buffalo, which is the first time in history anybody has ever chosen Buffalo over Charlotte. Okay, bishop to f3. And how does black make progress? Oh, it could be a Zugzwang situation. If king here, bishop g4 looks like winner, winner, chicken dinner. So bishop has to retreat. But now the rook can start going behind the pawns.
Could try and switch like b2 or something. I was thinking the other thing he could do is if white is moving bishop e2, bishop f3 back and forth, he could wait a move and then retreat his bishop and then play h3 in a position like this. Yeah, that's an easy win now that that happened. White needed to maybe mark time with king e3 in that position. Now it seems like Ryo's got the second point here.
Got 3,000 viewers that are watching Ryo potentially go to 2-0.
Wow. He is challenging the first seed here.
Yeah, he's got more time too, and so I don't think this one's going to be a problem. I wouldn't call this a boa constrictor game like in game one. I would call this a flat-out tactical game.
That was brutal.
As I have a kid trying to challenge me.
Even on your secret account.
Yeah, even on my secret account. That's very quickly try to start game three. We're going to get Rashad Babayev to join us, but luckily, David, we programmed it so when I'm viewing a game, nobody can challenge me. I just have to get that game up first.
They need special programming just for your account because no degree of secrecy can keep the kids from wanting some fun.
The early returns are good for the Texans, so we're going to bring on coach and grandmaster Rashad Babayev. Rashad, are you with us?
Yes. Hi, Mike. Hi, David. Hi, friends.
Got to be feeling pretty good about the start for your player. Now, he said it was in his, his desire to play faster. Did you guys talk about that?
Yeah, we talked about managing time, obviously, after the match with Elise, and gave him a few instructions. Seems like we got some improvement in time managing.
Now, you've been coaching for years and years, a lot of strong juniors. Are you riding the emotional wave of this match, just like probably his parents are?
Oh, even more. I would say more definitely, because you're expecting some stuff. Sometimes you see some surprises that makes you like, wow, we didn't look at it. What are you doing? That happens. But overall, I mean, from 2 games, pretty good quality of games for both sides. First game, I really liked how Marco set up the position. Everything was good, except I believe that e5 move was kind of anti-positional. I think queen b7, everything started with queen b7. Instead, probably some knight d7, bishop f6 ideas would have been better for him. But pretty good, solid chess we see in today's games.
Now, Alice played almost exclusively with the Petrosian variation against the King's Indian, and you just saw Marco went right into the Petrosian. So what are your thoughts as a coach? Are you like, oh man, I bet he's got something special prepared? Or is it maybe not so fearful because you probably had to correct any errors in his treatment of the Petrosian last week?
Yeah, we worked on Petrosian. Obviously, we got some improvement there in understanding overall. That variation, I honestly, I don't want to go into too much analysis there, but I can tell you that there, both sides made mistakes. Even Ryo made mistake.
Okay, well,
They did play 17 moves in 2 seconds, so that was impressive.
I think he messed up some order of moves at some point, but after 94, I can tell you, it's not that clear as it seemed like. I think castle was pretty not a good move for White to play. If no castle, that position is quite complicated.
Yeah.
Well,
it looked like that.
Without revealing any theory, I can certainly understand you not wanting to do that. In the game we just looked at, I thought that the idea of getting the queen to g2 and coming behind the king was a more clear win. Did you see any other wins that Ryo missed?
I think when he played bishop d7, there was no need for that. Queen g2, yeah, as you said, queen g2, bishop f3, knight f3, that position is completely won.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Queen g2, yeah, was winning the game.
Knight d2.
This is actually a typical move here, queen b6. I don't think Ryo missed it, so everything is...
So the first game, he seemed to get a pretty good position with White, but he's playing a different line here in the second game. Anyway.
Now he's choosing to choose the variation with e4 pawn sacrifice. I mean, this is all theory with e4. Old theory though. White is usually having good positional pressure because of undeveloped bishop on c8. But things can get trickier. I mean, they need to be careful, obviously. Or let's
it feels
say
more like the English than the Sicilian here.
Rashad, let's get some grandmaster analysis. Ryo paused for about 5 seconds here. Maybe he was considering capturing the knight.
I myself was considering that as well. Yeah, it's interesting idea, by the way. Why not? If rook b8, bishop b5, d6, we take everything and then take on c8 with the knight, most likely. And rook d2. But this is very unclear. We have 2 minors, but this is probably one of those positions where rook is not going to be weaker than 2 minor pieces. Even more. Now rook is quite dangerous on d2. Knight is now coming back to game quickly. But overall, it should be around equal. I don't think White will be having any problems here. Around equal is this position, in my opinion.
Good analysis. Well, we're back to the live game here, and you certainly can't fault Ryo for just wanting to keep his knight on these strong dark square, and probably even think about coming around to this square one day too.
That's possible. Right now, I think bishop. Oh, he was considering bishop e3 to save more material.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Why this position? Bishop f3.
Knight g5.
2 completely different opening games. Which one would you say is more indicative of Ryo's style? The Karpovian game 1 or the more Nakamura game 2?
The first one of this variation is more like his style. This is obviously more difficult for young players to play because everything you do should be based on, more positional. But Ryo is also good in positional. I mean, even Marco, I paid attention to his moves. These boys, they have good, solid understanding of chess. But they need to learn everything. I mean, you can't just always choose opening lines based on just tactics all the time. Obviously, they need to play the most aggressive chess possible at this age, but we shouldn't limit them in obviously improving positional understanding, like these kind of positions.
Nice positional move. Black was about to actually free his bishop by playing d5 and getting the bishop out. Even en passant is not a big problem, though. Actually, maybe it is because the rook is tied down to the bishop. But anyway, my point was that Ryo doesn't even want to allow the possibility of the bishop getting out.
Yeah, he locks it all down, and Black's done what he can. He can't get the bishop out, so he used the king to go defend things so that he could play with his rook instead of.
But no more improvement. No more improvement. They need to play f5, and that's really bad. King can even simply go to e5 later. King f4, king e5, king f6.
Wow.
This is looking like really. The only thing Ryo I feel needs to be careful with is not to play a5 ahead of time. He needs to keep that b5 option available. Because at some point he may need that b5 moving knight b6. So I think he doesn't need to rush with a4.
Yeah,
in
in
fact,
fact,
to play king f4 and he takes away rook g4 check first. The last thing that it seems like Black might play is h5 h4.
Yeah, everything is under control, seems like, right? For white.
I will say
Black
this.
bishop.
If white plays a4, a5, and king f4, he's literally playing checkers. All of his pieces are on dark squares.
Yeah, this is what is the kind of like preparation of opening. When we learn openings, we try to understand the structures, like what even endgame positions will be better to get. So Ryo has some understanding of these positions, like which endgame positions he can go for, or they will be really promising. So and seems like he's filling the position very well now.
I would like if white could get the b pawn all the way up to b6.
Yeah, that's going to happen at some point.
Blockade
Maybe no need to rush
instead of
with
the
that.
knight. Then you can switch your rook and put the knight on d6 instead of the rook, and use your rook on the a file, and then you've
quite possible.
Your pawn has done the job of first of your knight, then effectively of your rook, and so now you've got a whole extra rook to work with.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Even some tactics here, like knight e5 c6, like if rook is on e7, it's possible as well.
Okay, the rook ran away for just that reason, but even if he can't break through here, which I don't know, I don't want to defend this for Black, it is an impressive start. I can't really name a point in any of the first 3 games where he's been in danger.
Yeah, that was a good start. Obviously, it gives him more confidence in the match. For every chess player to start the match with 2-3-0, but this age, it's never predictable. Everything can happen. Their emotions or their nerves, it's all about experience, obviously. So anything can happen.
Okay, white does want to keep a few pawns on the board, so if he ever invades, he actually has some targets. That's why he's not choosing anything like pawn f3 or anything like that.
Yeah, he could play. He had a moment where he could play c6 when the black king was on
I think
d8,
so, yeah.
And then pawn takes knight c6 check, king e8, knight a5, and win the bishop like that. But I still think the easiest way to win is just put your rook on the a file.
Just to get rook a7, knight to d6. That's another plan.
Yeah. And I'm just going to win the bishop on c8 with rook to a8.
Why not? Eventually, yeah, he can. I mean, he needs to probably keep eyes on e5 move to make sure Black doesn't get. But even after e5, bishop is just dead. It reminds me. Okay, no, I mean, so many games probably like this play, but like a Capablanca's game where the bishop just got stuck and he was playing with extra piece. So same thing here, just white plays with extra piece. King f4, I would not rush with rook d2. Provoke him for rook g8 and then back.
I like it. You also have that psychological advantage of squeezing your opponent even more.
Yeah, although you do want to win before you run out of time, since it's a blitz game. He's down to 20 seconds, so it would be good for him to go for something decisive now rather than when he's got like 5 seconds.
That's true. This is a position, though, where if you need to make 20 quick moves to gain time, you have that luxury, but still, point taken.
Let's say is Yeah, that's what E5 was also interesting, then D6.
Okay, now, if only he had a king there, he could get his knight to E5. The bishop can finally come out. Okay, so a moral
That's good.
victory for black, even if he can't hold the game.
Now I need to get the pawn.
G4.
That's a
Needs
good
to
move.
take away the f6 square from the black king because it's fighting him for some
Yeah,
key
and
card squares
G5,
there.
another pass pawn. Beautiful. And then rook D1 or rook D2 just to hold.
Okay, the rook's going to invade on the 7th rank. Oh, no. Okay, thought he was going to C1.
D7, D7, put the pawn there. Yeah, and then rook
Now
D6
the black
or
king is further away from
G6 now.
E7, and then you move to
Distract
G4.
from here. Yep.
Okay,
Very nice.
11
I mean,
seconds.
this is obviously one.
Yeah, 11 seconds to 4
Five,
and
don't
a
give him
winning
F6.
position.
That's pretty perfect.
Ooh, and Marco just avoids the loss on time, but he's not going to avoid the loss on the computer. There's no fancy stalemate, and a 3-0 start for the American. Probably not many players predicting that one. We certainly predicted a close match, and I think that we'll still get it. But the dominance with those 3 games, I mean, like I said before.
They look very good, but they were also close. Marco hasn't played badly in these 3 games either. I mean, there's been like almost no mistake he's made that we could point to. Castling in his first white game, I think we saw a sort of like clear mistake. But
okay, and I'm not sure if Marco sees the next game has come up, so we're going to hope that Marco figures this out. I have found the game, but I'm not quite sure why Marco has not found the game.
well, we'll see. This seems to happen once or twice per match that somebody doesn't get the next game, and then
yeah, usually it's me, which is not a big problem. Okay, well, while we're working this out, he might be chatting to you, David, in French. You're going to have to use your language skills here in the chat to help Marco. Okay, that game is obviously not going to count. Let's just try to start that game again. I'm going to ask my team to start it once more. There's
the problem.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a
okay, he's got a problem.
Okay, let's pause the match clock.
What happened?
Ryo, we're going to pause because Marco's having a computer problem, so just hang
Okay,
tight, buddy.
I'll wait.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, while we're fixing this, just want to invite everybody again, welcome them rather, to the 2020 ChessKid Youth Speed Chess Championship. This is the finals. There's $1,500 on the line today, in addition to all of the other money we've thrown the kids' way. They're probably going to use that to, you know, buy a nice dinner for their parents and thank them for all of the things they do. No, they're probably going to use them on video games. What am I kidding? The winner today gets 1,000 big ones and lessons with a top 20 grandmaster. No, the player does not get to necessarily choose because, you know what, we probably can't afford Magnus Carlsen, okay? Sorry, kids. We'll try. I mean, I'll ask him, but, you know, he's on a boat in the Mediterranean Sea right now. So he actually is. David, did you see that he's playing?
Magnus is on a boat?
He is, but you should be focusing on chess right now. Yeah, he's playing the Legends of Chess tournament from some boat, David. So that'd be pretty amazing if he won a tournament while cruising the high seas.
Yes, that would be. I think that, you know, as long as he's hooked up to the internet, Magnus always has a chance to win a tournament. You know, whether he's upside down or on a spaceship or a boat.
Yep. Okay. I'm having some French translation trying to do in my head here, and
yeah, he sees his previous game.
Okay. Ask him to close out his previous game if he can, and refresh his browser. Once we get that done, we may be able to start. And Rashad, this is what we call in the business filler. Okay. So if you ever have any funny stories about Ryo, you know, the time that he dropped his knight in 5 moves. No, just kidding.
The time that he didn't say anything for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Ryo, yeah, Ryo is an interesting boy. I mean, one thing, I mean, he has many interesting things in his character. One of them, he's arguing in a nice way of it, obviously. Let's say last match with Elise, I was trying to explain him that you have to draw the game which lets you to win the match. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't be taking a risk to play, even though position is obviously cannot be lost, but you can get, let's say, disconnected, right? Or so many other things can happen. So, or you can just blunder, you know, you can, it's a mouse sleep or something like that. But he was still trying to insist that, no, but that position is good for me. Why draw?
Right. Well, you know what? And the problem is, if he read my news article, he'd be reminded that the exact same scenario happened at the 2013 Sinkfield Cup, where Magnus was offered a draw by Aronian, a draw, one clear first in the tournament, and Magnus said no. So he's probably going to say something like, but Magnus did it. And then what are you supposed to say to that?
Yeah, I know it happens to chess. I myself had several moments like that in my chess career, but then later you understand you shouldn't be taking risk. Magnus, I mean, in the situation of Magnus Carlsen, it could be different. He may win the game and get more rating points, something like that, or I don't know, maybe different privileges there. I don't know. But in the case of Ryo, I mean, you're just winning the match, so you shouldn't be really going for that.
Okay, we're going to try to start the next game here. So hopefully the players are ready, and if they'll pay attention to their screens, we are going to try to keep going again. By the way, the clock was paused, so no strategic advantage to either player when these things happen. Keep in mind, they are kids. They're not expected to be computer programming experts. But we're going to wait and see. I'm going to refresh my screen and see if the game has started on my end. It has. So Rashad, we can stop being storytellers and go back to being chess players.
Yes,
Yeah.
Let's be chess players. All right, again, Petrosian. Yeah, we were expecting that this is going to be the main challenge here. Since, again, Ryo played previous match with Elise, probably Marco prepared something with his coach.
Okay, I think they're following game two. Rashad, you
Following.
probably have a better memory than I do. So when
Good
they divert from
prediction.
game two, you can let us know.
Okay, I think in this case, after rook e8, if he plays knight f4 again, knight a6 is the best move.
Knight a6. Okay, typical for the Petrosian when you play a5 to bring the knight behind the pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Idea being knight gets to c5 without being kicked with b4. That's why we play a5 first many times.
Still plays knight e4.
94. All right. Let's see if he castles again. Castling looked pretty bad. I think.
Yeah.
I think he might notice that went very bad.
But it's now more psychological. Ryo's doing right thing because he won the game with knight e4. Now Marco needs to bring something here. So
It's true. Even if knight a6 is a better move, sometimes you let your opponent find an improvement. You know.
Correct. Of course, especially in Blitz, you need to spend some time. So psychologically, Ryo is choosing the right decision here, knight e4.
Yep, I was going to bring up all the points you just said. My only argument against that is castling was so obviously bad because your king got mated, or should have gotten mated.
It's like unlikely he would repeat it.
Yeah, but I hear you. Now, I've never really played a match where I have to think about these psychological elements. What about you, Rashad? Have you ever played many games against somebody where you're kind of putting the onus on the other player to find an improvement after one of your wins?
I mean, it's usually not like you're kind of programming yourself to do that. It's more about feelings of the position. If you felt like after knight e4, hey, I really didn't like the position. Opponent, I mean, could play something else, not castle. Then you need to switch your knight e4 to something else. But on the other hand, if you feel like, no, everything was good for you, let's play that knight e4 once again and let him in Blitz in 5 minutes to figure out what is the best move. So let's say right now he plays bishop f3. I don't think this is the best move. Okay, this is probably another mistake. So that's why knight f2 right now is a strong move. So psychologically, knight e4 is a good solution, obviously, but we don't have any kind of way or instruction to say, hey, like in this position, just play that or this. It's usually by feelings. If you felt you got something wrong, even though you won the game, you have to change something, obviously. But Ryo did not have that feeling. He kind of got very comfortable position. That's why it's normal and understandable why he plays knight e4. And
That
also
makes
look,
sense.
right now, the white players spent like 1 minute to figure this out and still not the best move, bishop f3.
Good, so knight f2, of course, the knight would love to get to d3, but let's just say the rook chooses the obvious.
I think queen h4 is a strong move here.
Okay. And now you're just threatening the knight outright.
Mm-hmm. And knight d3, they're coming after. H3 is still under attack. I have options with some diagonal things like moving knight and then g2. Again, it's obviously will come up later, but I think position is very comfortable for black.
Yeah, very funny position where black is attacking with only one side of his army, but it's just so effective with that enemy king in the middle of the chessboard. Okay, no moves have been made. So really laboring out of the opening for both players here. Now, you did bring up that knight e4, challenge white to find an improvement. It took him a minute to play bishop f3, but a minute and a half to play the g2 response.
Let's see what he's calculated. Knight g2 is the obvious
Wow,
response.
this is wow, this is interesting. I didn't look at this option. Very possible, but what did he calculate here?
That is a great question. I guess the safest move is just bring the bishop back.
Why not bishop? Yeah, or bishop h5 with tempo.
Bishop g4, h5. Fighting for something.
Yeah,
not sure why he gave up the pawn. Still don't understand what is the kind of idea behind this. All right, black has some compensation, obviously, but that pawn on g3 was very strong. I would not give up that pawn just for initiative. I had initiative anyway.
Now, I've covered a few playoffs at US Chess Championships, in fact, quite a lot. And they generally play a couple of rapid games. And there's a few minutes between the rapid games where this very funny thing happens where the two players sort of go to their corners like boxers and have very quick chat, sometimes by phone with their coaches. Would you like to see a match like that, Rashad, where in between each game or maybe each couplet of games, they could talk with their coach for like, 2 minutes or something?
In online games, I wouldn't do that probably because they can get like computer analysis stuff. Probably right. I wouldn't do that. But in those kind of tournaments, like you said, yeah, it's more interesting to see like they're discussing things with coach. But it's more like natural advice from the coach than you can get from the computer just by setting up the position quickly. That's why, but giving them some like rest between rounds, of course, like with the way that you can still see them what they're doing in the room, that will be interesting. They can get maybe sometimes you have to think of the things, not immediately start the game. Just like 2 minutes, like what I did in the previous game, okay, what I need to change, then you start the new game. So that's interesting option. But on the other hand, everyone is in the same situation, so nothing to complain about. Just playing match.
For anyone who's ever playing this position as white, you can.
No, I don't think you're gonna find any game here. No.
You can reduce your thinking to a very narrow goal, which is you want to castle queenside. If you can castle queenside, you'll probably have a good position. If you don't castle queenside, you'll probably have a bad position. I mean, I won't say win or lose, but it's pretty close to that. So you really focus on how to castle queenside, and you don't need to be distracted by any other moves. So I think last move, for example, Marco, when he was thinking about queen c2, bishop f5. And when he decided he didn't like that, he instead played queen d1 to go to e2 to have the option of castling queenside while covering knight f3 checks a little bit better.
And unlike that famous grandmaster who once had to ask the arbiter, can I castle when my opponent attacks b1? Answer is yes. Okay, I just saved you that embarrassing moment that some grandmaster once had in a game.
Who was that grandmaster?
You know what? I think it was somebody really good, but I'd have to research it. Korchnoi? Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. It was Korchnoi.
I was expecting Ivanchuk.
He had like I think he had like a rook on h1 attacked by a bishop, or maybe it was like a couple moves before, like this variation was going to come up, and so he went and asked the arbiter, like, will I be able to attack with? Will I be able to castle with the?
Oh, Korchnoi was. I mean, he was amazing. Obviously, a legendary grandmaster, and I myself, I seen him in the tournaments with pretty weird reactions to opponents' moves, or sometimes like even decisions. You may, let's say, ask him, I offer you a draw right in a position where you feel like it's an equal position or you're better, and he can just answer, hey, are you okay? You cannot offer me draw here, like something like that.
Right.
So he can definitely do that. Or if you don't resign in a bad position, he can tell, hey, why don't you resign? But come on, yeah. It's like, it's a bad position. So Korchnoi can do that.
That is great stuff. Unfortunately, I only got a chance to meet him very briefly at the 2016 Zurich tournament. One of the last, I think he died in 2017 or 2018. I believe the 2017 edition was dedicated to him. But that was the only time I ever met him, at the opening ceremony. And I was glad to at least do it once. Like, I've met Spassky once, I've met Korchnoi once. So it's nice. So you guys have probably had bigger interactions with these players, but it was nice to meet them once. No for David? Okay.
Actually, Spassky came to the Mechanics Institute once.
Okay.
And so I brought like a book I had of his games, and he signed it.
Well, Marco was once again down on the clock by almost a minute. He castled short. You can understand why. There were some big holes over here on these light squares that he wanted to avoid. And
he gave us a lesson about about rook and pawn endings, and the rook and the king, and how like they interact with each other. The rook wanting space from the king, and it was a good lesson.
Nice. Yeah, I've always thought it to be one of the most classy people. In fact, one of the classiest things you have to know about Spassky is somebody asked him, I'm sure many people have asked him about Fischer, and does he despise Fischer for all these antics, this or that? And he was basically like, no, he put me on the map. Like, I was just world champion. Then I became like a very famous guy when I played Fischer. He made his career, even though it was a loss. And he was a very, a good sport in that match. He could have tried to win the match on default, but he wanted to try to win that match the right way. But back to the game, because Marco is facing another difficult defense with only a couple seconds on his clock.
No,
I think it's pretty smart from him practically to be willing to sack the exchange because of the importance of that dark squared bishop. But I'm very, very worried about him seemingly insistent on castling kingside every game, because I think that's really costing him.
Okay, so black is temporarily down a piece, although, he won on time, but in a very difficult position.
Yeah, it is lost bishop on g4.
Yeah, the bishop on g4 was lost there.
And a 4-0 match start. I mean, I wasn't sure if Marco had ever been down at all, but I'm quite sure he's never been down by 4 games. Gotta be feeling pretty good over there, Rashad. You want to stick around for one more game?
Sure.
Okay.
We can look at this. Yeah, this is another probably Paulsen. Yeah, 4-0 is a big score, obviously, but Ryo cannot obviously underestimate opponent, and he still needs to do his best. I think that, C4 still. Yes, please, Mike.
I'm sorry, in the Speed Chess Championship, the players are much more locked into their openings than they are in the adult version of this tournament. I don't know if it's because they just have a more limited opening repertoire, or because their coach, they want to play what they prepared, or what the reason is, but just a general observation as we enter our 7th match.
In Blitz, usually you have to play the openings that you know and you feel. Because in Blitz, overall, you are playing by feelings, not by intuition. You're not really calculating that much. You're not really making a lot of estimations. So you're going by your feelings, and you have to play the opening lines that you know the best. Even though they're not going to give you advantage, you still need to play them because you feel those positions. You're not going to spend too much time. That's why, let's say what Marco does now, I don't know about this game, the previous ones. Yeah, he was playing well, but he was spending more time. Same thing Ryo was doing with Elise. That's why he was always down in time. And in Blitz, when you're getting that, even though your position is good, but you're down in time, and you have a big chance not to win the game. That's why play what you know, obviously what you feel more, even though it's not the best, but it's best for you.
And already a big improvement for Marco. He got his pawn to d6. So
yeah, like
much
50
better.
moves faster than last game.
But I think this is queen d4 is coming right now after b takes c. Like both pieces under attack.
Okay, maybe not an improvement. I mean, a visual improvement.
Queen c6.
Queen c6, knight b6.
3 as well.
Yeah,
let's take a look at that.
Looks very dangerous. And right now, I think, maybe, wait a second. No, it should be calculated. Queen d4, no, the e4 is not under attack. He can play bishop c5. Bishop f3, d5. Oh, this could be very good, yes. Bishop f4.
Well,
yes.
Yeah. If I could sack an exchange in a lot of these positions and not be totally lost.
Amazing. 4,000 of us are watching. I know there's some other big chess events going on, like the FIDE Olympiad and the Legends of Chess, and Nakamura doing his funny usual things. So thank you all for joining us, the 2020 ChessKid Youth Speed Chess Championship. I'm here with Playful Squirrel and Grandmaster Rashad Babayev. Playful Squirrel, you almost went into a deep think there like classical chess. Did I see one of these from you?
I do like to think about these positions. They're playing really rich, real chess here. So,
and I guess you actually have more distractions to block out at home than in a tournament. I mean, you've got all of the normal things in your home that could be distracting you. So we should see this more in online chess.
I mean, that said, Mike, I can concentrate through any of that stuff if I'm looking at chess, but this is just more like how I'm used to. It's more of like a habit than a way of blocking anything out. It's like that's how I sat for years.
That's true. And in real life, squirrels are most afraid of what? Lawnmowers? Would that be the biggest concern?
I would say dogs.
Okay.
Are the #1 threat to squirrels. But it's really just because we get cocky. Like there's no dog we can't outrun. We just sometimes get a little cocky about it, get a little too close, taunt the dog.
Good zoology lesson. Good job. Good stuff. Okay, so Rook C1, the threat is...
Well, that turns out to be a very interesting move we played. I'm just calculating a D takes C8-3 followed by knight C5. But black played bishop D7. What is knight B6 doing now?
B6 is the move to calculate.
Okay, so let's assume the rook goes here.
And A3?
Ooh, isn't that funny? A pawn move spoils the position sometimes. Now, can I take
Bishop
here?
C5, knight D7. Oh, but then you have queen D7.
Queen.
I gotta be careful with that.
Right.
No, you can take with the queen.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Well, Mike's explaining everything for the viewers.
All right.
Actually, most of the time I'm blundering, but on that particular occasion, I was explaining. Yes.
You were.
You're not wrong.
So okay, if I start with knight D7, oh, maybe knight D7, because to queen D7, I have queen D4.
Yeah.
So it's a move order tactic. There we go. Let's add that one to Puzzle Duel.
And if rook D7, then there's A3.
Then A3, B4. Oh, he played even C takes D. We didn't look at this. This is another candidate move. But what is queen D6 doing?
Somehow you need to have this pawn here to be able to play bishop C5.
Right now, queen B3 could be interesting, quite typical for such positions, or even queen C2. With idea
that white's only sacked one pawn, and black is living on the edge here.
Yeah, if you could divert the bishop to this square, then if you trade queens, there's some problems on the diagonal.
Even A3 looks strong.
Immediately, right?
Yeah, just A3 here.
Okay, so I think bishop better take.
He's going for pin, bishop D6, rook D1.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's also possible.
I was trying to gain a full tempo on this.
But then bishop C6.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then...
Bishop A6.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my puzzle thing came up, but yeah. I was trying to play bishop to A6, not bishop to puzzle. Okay, so we've got some live moves. He took with the knight. And I thought A6, bishop C5 was going to be my idea. But maybe you just trade the knight on B6. Let's see.
At the very least, A3,
bishop
B4.
A5, rook D1. Rook D1 here.
Okay.
Yeah.
God, everyone
just ends it.
Wow, that's good one. That's good one, David. Yeah, now is winning.
Yeah, every black minor piece has got its different level of stress here.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to play A3 first, because in this line I thought black could play bishop takes D6, and I hadn't yet seen what to do.
Okay, we have a new move in the game, which was A3. So
A3.
Okay, he sees that.
He sees it.
Wow, if he were able to go 5-0, that would just be something that even Vegas odds makers could not
see
predict.
something with bishop C5.
Oh, he's going for bishop C5 idea.
Rook C6,
too many,
bishop F3.
too many pins
Rook
around.
C6, bishop F3. He saw
Yeah.
the line. Once you see one, it doesn't matter which other good lines you have. You just have to see one.
So how does black bail out? Even bishop C6 is not really a good bailout because of the trading and then taking on this one.
I mean, some draw possibilities we still have. If black can get knight to D5 with the bishop on C6 stuff, giving up rook for the bishop, Not that easy though.
Okay, so he's going to try to save everything. The problem is, if you don't sack the exchange now, you might lose an entire piece. But I guess you could always move the knight later after the bishop posts on c5. And of course, you could just snap the bishop too. So I guess black is not completely losing the chance to give up only the exchange.
I think he's given up the best chances to do it. I'm not seeing a way for him to do it in a pleasant way here. I mean, not that it's pleasant, but like if you play the line with rook c6, then after white plays bishop takes, bishop f3. If you play rook d8 to try and defend the knight, bishop c6, rook to d1.
Well, I don't know.
At some point, they need to give up.
I don't know what's going to happen the rest of this match, Rashad, but you should be getting a raise from the Chen family after this one. I'm trying to help you out here. So
thank you.
if Ryo's mom and dad are listening, he was prepared very well for this match.
Yeah, we had big discussion with him, especially about time managing. At least I see that time managing got better. I mean, in this level, we will obviously have mistakes. It's normal. There's always.
Rook c7 is threatened. Bishop c6, bishop a6.
Yeah, this is one. Some technical issues white has, but position is one. Unless if white, again, I was saying about d5, but now I'm looking at this, probably black needs to go for d4. Like if they can set up knight f5, e5, knight d4, but I don't see how you're going to do all those things comfortably. White bishop f3, rook d1, no time for it.
Can you try?
Time is ticking.
This is desperation, but can you try knight b5 to try to keep the rook out of c7 and then put your bishop here?
I looked at a rook d1, d1, bishop c6, a4. It's kind of not on time.
Gotcha.
Knight runs out of territory.
And when the knight moves, well, I guess you could play here to guard
B5.
this square.
Doesn't b5 lose a piece?
I think it does.
Yeah, so the knight ends up going to like a7 and we give up. Bishop takes a6 or something.
Now the bishop came here, but he didn't take this one. Was there a trick with knight here, or what's the idea?
Maybe didn't just see that.
Yeah.
Knight there,
Okay.
that's rook c2. So there's not really tricks. I mean, there could be bishop g2, but it's still nice for white to make the pawn majority on the queen side and open c7.
Yep. And the nice thing about the way he's playing is every single time he gets one of these better endgames, he's always had about 20 seconds more at least to convert the game.
That does help. For sure.
Okay, usually when you're the side defending, you keep one set of rooks on the board. However, the rook on c7 was so strong, black may have felt compelled and he had no choice.
That's why one way, so a lot of people know that you should trade material when you're in a better, when you've got a material advantage. But some people don't know that one of the most effective ways to do that is to put your pieces on such good squares that your opponent has to trade them because they can't tolerate them, right? So if you've got a rook on the 7th rank, that's going to make your opponent come and trade your rook for you instead of you try and go to the open file and keep chasing their rook back and forth with yours, where they'll just avoid you and not trade.
Right, and Marco's insistence on trying to make improvements with the move f6 earlier weakened his g6 pawn, and no surprise, the rook is finally taking over and should not be too difficult as long as you avoid any possible forks.
Yeah.
We're seeing good instincts from Ryo too, playing a5 in response to a6. That's very nice instinct to have there.
Yeah, knight d4 was clearly a pre-move. He's too strong to just hang a piece like that. But there we go. It is 5-0. There's still 15 minutes left and change on the match clock. So Rashad, thanks so much for joining us. I hope your nerves will calm down a little bit after that perfect start.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, David, for this show. Thank you.
And as
Good
always,
luck to players.
if people are impressed, and why wouldn't they be by your coaching, what's the best way for potential students to reach you?
Just to email me to the website. They can find information, rashadbabayev.com.
rashadbabayev.com. And if you don't know how to spell that, why have you not gone to Baku on vacation to learn how to spell Azerbaijani names? No, just kidding. We're going to put that in the chat. Rashad, thanks so much. There is no next match, so this will be you signing off for good, but we really appreciate you coming on the shows all the way through this championship.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
Take care, buddy. All right, so back to the Playful Squirrel and myself, and I think I'm neglecting to show the viewers game number 6. 5-0 start. Okay, so we've
But
seen
we
these
haven't missed
positions twice.
anything yet. It's still moves we've seen before. Come on,
Exactly
just take
right.
that knight and play queen c2 or bishop at d3.
Actually, you'll have to remind me, David. Rashad was not a fan of castles. I think I can agree
Yep.
with him there. He wasn't a fan of bishop f3 either. So I'm actually literally forgetting. Did he suggest trading knight and playing queen c2?
I don't know if he did, but I did in the first game.
Well, you're both much stronger players than me, so I'm very deferential at this moment. What's that movie where the person's under stress and they're like, "I'm looking for suggestions. I'll take anything right now."
that's White's camp right now. That's the French fans. You just got to get castle queenside, and then well here bishop d3 rook f4. So castle queenside. Please don't castle kingside. Please
I can't
don't castle
imagine.
kingside. I just want to match Mike. I'm not trying to be biased or something.
Yeah, I completely agree. I want to match too, and I also just want a little bit more of a competitive game here. I think castling kingside just looks visually quite horrible. Now, this is the disconnection of the queen and the rook. It's actually, if I can go back, David, it's our first Oreo of the match. We have the two enemy pieces, the cookie on the outside and the cream in the middle.
Mike, you're making me want cookies. No.
Well,
don't talk about
maybe I'll have
cookies
it
in
again.
front of me.
Okay, so castles, bishop takes, getting rid
He
of that.
finally castled queenside, Mike. We have a match.
Very nice. He's going to cost him the extra pawn.
Oops.
Actually, I'm sorry, he wasn't up a pawn, but you're exactly right. You remember in the previous game, he got his pawn to d6, even though he was still losing. I hope this is not a similar situation where we're cheering just because he got his king castled.
No, but I really feel like castling changes the evaluation. Like which side, it's like a 5-point difference in evaluation, whether you castle kingside or queenside. Maybe more than 5, maybe like 7.
Could be. And actually, there's some hesitation. If we go back, taking this pawn puts the rook on the same diagonal as the king. And something very simple like bishop f3, and black's got problems all along the light squared long diagonal.
Yeah, but c6, I wasn't really sure why Ryo thought for a while and then didn't take the pawn.
Gotcha. And also, this is an idea too. I wasn't quite sure if this was what I preferred. But
again, we've got to try d5 and then c6 to put some pawns on light squares.
Yep.
Once we end up in this sort of a situation. Queen f5, queen e4 doesn't seem to lose immediately for black. So, I mean, he can consider this kind of thing. In fact, even queen f6 instead of queen e4 will also get the queen trade because of b2.
Yeah, there's a mate threat down here if you don't trade queens. So, all right, but back to the game. Not taking undue risks.
So bishop comes to g4 and keeps that pawn in e6 for the moment. And we've got a wild tussle here.
Got to be honest with you, the decision not to capture the pawn is Marco-esque. We talked about this a lot in the first couple matches of his, where he refused to take extra material if it allowed his opponent to have some fun. And now Ryo is showing that same sort of maturity. Even though technically, David, it looks like your lines are working out, kind of have to burn a minute on your clock to figure all that out. Unless you're the squirrel when you can figure all that out in 3 seconds.
So now, if he goes for queen g6, they've got to be analyzing rook f8, rook f1 here, fighting for control of the f7 square.
Oops,
white,
maybe.
Yeah.
One of the rooks.
Yep. And g2 is an idea, and then rook f8 luckily leads to mate. But that's exactly what they needed to calculate here.
Okay, we've got
if
some.
Black trades rooks on f1 and then plays g2, is that the live position?
This is the live position.
It's relevant. G2 would look like counterplay except for that move.
Sorry, I stole your thunder. I actually thought you were going to. I know. I thought you were going to. It was your move. I want to
get. I'm full of thunder. I've got thunder to spare.
That's all we have these days is theoretical. And whoa, it happened.
Did it happen? Return to game. Did he get his first point?
We have ourselves a match. Rook f8 did happen.
This exact line. I told you that was the critical line that they had to check because this was like Black's only way to restrain queen g6 was to try for this g2 thing, and it just didn't seem to work, you know?
Yeah, and a little bit of shrug of the mouth there from Ryo. Really his only bad move in the match, out and out blunder that I can recall, at least.
So we feel the impact of castling queenside, right? It gave us a match.
Exactly, and it just shows that you give your opponent a tactic. You know, you're not going to play a perfect match. It's going to be 2 hours of chess. So Marco is finally showing some skill. I feel like you have to have a backup opening. I mean, maybe when you're 6 years old and you're taught E45, but I would just go back to any other reserve opening you have, because I can't remember a single game where Marco has really gotten in the game as black in this position.
That is true. That's the next thing he needs to solve. The first thing was he needed to like score a point with white in that opening. He needed his castle queen side. Now he's on the board, but I agree with you that he needs a different opening for his black games.
Right, but it's 5-1. The Texan, the American, is getting the best of the Parisian right now. However, Marco has showed such extreme class. In fact, he didn't lose a single game against Brewington Hardaway in the semifinals in the 3+1 segment. Ryo, by the way, did get back in his match against Alice by winning like 4 or 5 in a row in the 3+1 segment. So they've both shown.
He lost the 5-minute segment last week.
Yeah, in fact, Alice won 4 in a row, and then Ryo won the final 5-minute game, and then the first 4 3-minute games. So in total, 5 in a row. They both have shown great acumen in the 3-minute section.
Yeah. Well, I guess Marco thinks that the D6 that he played last game was better than the game before, where he sort of hunkered down and left white with control over B6 and D6. But honestly, I mean, he was under tremendous pressure that game. There were like 7 different ways he could have lost material in the opening, and eventually one of them happened. So I'm worried.
Okay, now in the previous game, they all sort of run together when you're trying to run a show, but wasn't the bishop on B4 in the previous game?
Yeah, he didn't play bishop E7 first, did he? He played D6 last game with the bishop on B4. Good call.
Well, in this case, black only has 1 loose piece, not 2. So the problem is you keep making these incremental improvements, but I don't know that you have time. You know, you went from -3 to -2. Now maybe you're -1.1. I don't know.
Right. He's much less likely to drop a piece this way. That's big.
That's true.
Big.
I
Gives
thought
him a
white
chance
might just trade and play bishop F3 and squeeze, but you are down a pawn. So even winning the C6 pawn isn't always enough for an advantage.
Yeah, and in those positions, I like playing moves like bishop F3 without trading on D6. Put that pressure on your opponent. If they trade, it brings your rook to D1 and leaves C6 undefended.
Okay, now the knight's going to come to D5 to help block off that diagonal in case of bishop F3.
Because white wants to play rook D1 and bishop F3, so knight D5 is going to try and hold it together.
Okay, obviously there's some weak dark squares as well. We've got rooks coming in, and my first thought is that white has compensation for the pawn. What about you, Squirrel?
Yeah, white's crushing here. Bishop C5, probably good. Probably good enough. It's perhaps the most simple move. Once you notice rook D1, knight D5 is not the most simple. The next thing you might turn to would be bishop C5, and the queen wants to cover C6 and E7. It's a tall order.
Typically, we've got about 8 games that are played in the 5-minute section, but if this one goes really long, it could just be a 7-minute section. And if you're Ryo, you're probably not thinking about this in the opening 5-minute segment, but if you could make this one last, there's about 6 minutes, 45 seconds on the game clock, and reduce the total number of games guaranteed by 1 game. That has to help you.
I've played a couple matches like this myself, and when playing, I literally just think about like the position. Like there isn't like headspace for other like gaming stuff. Like I need to play this game a little faster, that game a little longer, or how many games are there going to be? I at least was just in this mode where like I know that I need to play the best possible in this game,
right.
So that's where I'm putting everything.
And David, you can help me with this, but the reverse evolution of the ChessKid Youth Speed Chess Championship is that last year we added the junior and the women's Speed Chess Championship. We used to just have the regular Speed Chess Championship, but a precursor to everything was the chess.com death matches, which were just individual matches. And did you not play the very first ever death match?
I did. And at the time, the very first version was only bullet chess.
And how many games? Or was it just 3 hours of bullet?
It was a million games. Yeah, it was 3 hours of bullet.
Didn't you keep score on a whiteboard behind you or something like that? I've seen the video for this.
We may have, yeah.
Against Danny Wrench. Yeah,
we may have kept score on a whiteboard behind us and had just piles of like money on a table for the prize. So yeah, it was.
By the way, this is how all chess.com and ChessKid employees feel good about the website. Yeah, there's a couple bugs here and there. Yeah, there's some improvements. But if you're ever having a bad day, you just go back and look at the production quality of a video from 2011, and you're like, we've actually come a long way. We're doing okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
rook to c8. White is still down a pawn, but one of the tricks in these positions is you want to win the pawn back under your own terms. You don't want to win a pawn back and let your opponent, for example, catch up in development, get his king back to f8, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. White's position's really nice, though. I mean, it's even hard for black to castle by hand because the h7 pawn's often hanging. Like, you'll see things that happen where, like, you know, the rook comes to d8, and then you play like rook d1, and black has to play knight d5 or something, and then you play queen h7, and then you just realize, like, oh, there's no scenario where black survives. Like,
Yeah.
white doesn't have to do anything amazing. Black's just, like, has nowhere to go with his king ever.
And black would have liked to have put the rook here to alleviate the king's need to protect the bishop to be able to go back so the knight can keep guarding h7. But, David, what's the winning move for white?
Knight to boy 7.
Knight to boy 7, exactly. So that's not going to work either. So we had, let's go to the live game. We had knight to d5 and the queen, sorry, knight came to b7 anyway. My apologies.
Queen c4 hitting the a pawn and introducing queen h4, etc., right? So black plays rook to d8, and white plays knight b7, winning an exchange. But notice, like, also just instructively, the possibility of queen h4 check in that position. You know, black's position would have been bad there too. So,
well, in fact, it might
we might see that bishop takes knight,
Yep.
right? Seemingly, what are you doing? Well, just queen h4 to h7, and there's just nowhere to go with this game for black.
Quick check of the match clock, 3 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. So not quite clear yet if this is going to be the final game of the 5-minute section. It is deserving to be noted that Ryo was down on the clock quite dramatically for the first time in the match.
Yeah, this game, he put a lot of thought into what he was doing. But we'll see if he's low enough on time to make it hard to convert this position. The position is very, very convertible.
Yeah, black wants his pawns here and here to complement his bishop and to put those rooks under stress of guarding the pawns.
Yeah.
But his king's a
pretty
little bit
easy idea for white of h4, h5, h6, and the black king has nowhere safe to go. So if I were black, I would try for counterplay. I would play like you're suggesting with d4 and then e5.
Let's see if Ryo finds it. This is one of those plans that's incredibly slow, but sometimes when your opponent is incredibly helpless, it's perfectly fine to play a 3-move plan.
Also, it's not as slow as it seems because you need to get rid of your back rank at some point, probably.
Yeah.
So you need to, like, so alternatively, you could play h3 and then start fighting with your rooks on the c file or something, right? Like try to go rook c7 or something, or rook d3 to g3 like he's doing. But h4 instead of h3, and by the time you play h5, you're already sort of starting to threaten queen g6 check and h6, and it's not that slow, honestly.
Right, now if queen g6, the king has to go to e7. Otherwise, if king f8, rook c8 ends the game. So I'm not really sure what is being thought of. Okay, finally we had king e7.
Well, he's got a couple minutes. I mean, one thing you want to do is, as black, you might want to lull white into using all his time. So sometimes you want to spend 1 or 2 seconds on your move so your opponent matches your pace by spending 1 or 2 seconds on their move. And then, like, they only notice when they've got 10 seconds, like, oh my God, I need to hurry up.
It's just an interesting idea. So now the h-pawn lurches forward. Marco is trying to cut the gap to only 3 games, which of course can be erased very quickly in the 3-minute segment coming up. We'll have 45 more minutes of 3-minute. This is typically where I would inform the players if this is the last game or not, but I can't do it. We've got 1:16 on the match clock, and I don't want to disturb them by giving them a chat right now. So we're gonna have to let this one play out. I'm gonna tell my team not to automatically start that next 5-minute game because we've got to keep a very close eye on the match clock.
Yeah. So you see Ryo with 15 seconds. He has come up with this h-pawn plan.
The queen's brilliant on f4, guarding h6, guarding c7, and tempoing the rook on c1.
It's great that it's covering c7. White was still threatening h6 though because of the undefended rook. So, and now you see he may not have enough time to finish this.
That's true, but there's just no protection at all of the king. Now I would trade queens because if you avoid mate, you can create some counterplay with your pawns and your bishop. I would have played queen d7.
Absolutely. And you know the endgame is going to take a while for white to win, and white doesn't have much time.
Yeah.
Now there's real worries about getting the king on the other side of the rook and not getting mated here.
Right. If this was chess 960, you could just move your king to g8 and castle, but that's not how the game works in regular chess.
You've seen how fast Ryo's touch padding can be.
King h5, you can play bishop g6, and you're starting to wiggle out of this mess.
Yeah, he's trying to wiggle out. On queen c1, he has maybe g5.
Rook h2 is like some kind of helpmate. He's
That
trying
is
to-
weird.
Okay, but 3 seconds left. This
It's
is
very, very
time up.
tense.
Okay, this is officially the final game of the 5-minute
Oh,
section.
f3 is really strong. Oh, and queen f4 was good too, because if queens trade, he would en passant and there's no g4.
Uh-oh, g4 did happen.
Last little ticks of the game.
1.8, and he's going to win a piece. I think d2 offers some resistance.
d2
but
allows queen b1. That's what he's worried about.
actually,
Then
maybe you
he'd have
play.
e4. It might not be over. Okay, try something else. Interesting.
Okay, you got to activate your
Has
rook
been
somehow.
on
If you play
e4
d2, queen b1 is a big issue, but
Oh.
actually after e4, it's not that clear.
a7 was
oh, he
evil, but
finds a
he had
forced mate.
planned a checkmate.
Unbelievable with 2 seconds on his clock, and he looks,
Wow.
I would say, more relieved than everybody.
Ryo came through. Wow. That was close. That was the best chance Marco's had in a game with black, despite getting a horrible opening. It was not like it was not completely lost in the same way some of the other ones were.
Wow. I mean, we've really been treated to some awesome chess. We've had time trouble drama. We've had some theoretical drama. We've had some tactics with the king walks that we've seen. And we had a checkmate found under extreme time pressure. You can't ask for much more out of either player right now.
Yeah, we've had a couple sort of like, puzzle rush checkmates, right? We've had this one here with the rook sack on h6, and we had rook f8 check. Two very, very classic mating patterns. And that's why, people drill this kind of stuff, so that when you've got 1 second on the clock, you just know it. You don't have to look for it or calculate it or double check it. You just know you've got the mate.
That's exactly right. And we actually have no other match bumping up against us. So I might be a little generous here and give these players 4 minutes, not 3.
4 minute break instead of 3.
Well, maybe I'm giving you and me the extra minute. Maybe we're the ones that need it, to be honest with
Such
you.
a softie, Mike. You're so lenient with the kids.
Well, I played a couple sets of tennis this morning in 95-degree humidity. If you need to know why I'm flagging, I'm using the other version of the word flagging, but 6-1. I don't like to make predictions. I know a lot of chess commentators do, but I like to be impartial. But I don't think anybody could pick 6-1 lead really for either player.
No, I expected basically like a tied match, like a plus or minus 1 game match was my prediction before this round. And I'm surprised to see this degree of dominance in the score. A lot of the game's close, but a lot of it goes to Ryo's openings, I think, putting Marco in such a tough spot several times.
I agree. He's not been able to solve the questions really of either opening, especially in an expeditious way. So the Petrosian is, well, I guess there was one playable position for White, which happened to be the game that he won. He wasn't clearly winning when he won. He found the tactic at the right time, though. And
he got a game. He got a game that time. That was almost the only time that he's like got a game out of the opening.
Yeah, and the 4 games as black, I can't really name a single position as black that I can definitely say Marco was clearly better in those. He just had weak dark squares all over the chessboard. B6.
Not even one he was equal in, honestly. I mean, I think all his positions were like technically lost out of the opening with black, all 4.
Yeah,
like
I think I would agree with that.
If you were putting down players like, Carlsen and Kramnik at the chessboard to play those games out, you would expect White to score like 99% with an occasional draw in those positions.
Wow, David, it sounds like you know those positions so well that you could write the post-match news article for me. Thank you. I'm not trying to give you extra work, but I would value your insight. Well, we can talk about that offline, but yeah, we'd love to see more playful squirrel on the airwaves. There we go. It is 6-1 as Ryo comes back. Actually,
who would like to write the post-match article for you, Mike?
Who's
Let
that?
me get something.
Oh, Ryo. Yeah. Those prop bets they make in Vegas, like, who wins the coin flip in the Super Bowl, or, the first penalty to get called, what kind of penalty? If we were to make a bet which player was back from the break first, I would have bet all my money on Ryo. Because he's got that sort of bubbly energy, I think he probably even is like listening to us during the break just so we can he can hear all the compliments and praise.
And probably doesn't need breaks either.
That's true. Yeah, maybe we should have made this a 3-hour match. I made it a 2-hour match, unlike the regular Speed Chess Championship, which is a 3-hour match, because I didn't want to, make the kids play more chess than they had to. I thought 3 hours might be too much for 10-year-old kids, but I bet for a lot of them it'd be okay.
The original intent of the 3-hour match and the name deathmatch sort of reveals the intent, but the original intent was to test a player's stamina as well as their chess ability, right? Because if you just wanted to test their chess ability, just play like an 8-game blitz match. You've got an idea who's better, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the idea was to really test their stamina. And in my opinion, it's not quite enough, actually. For the adults, it should be extended to 4 hours. And I think it's natural to try and give the kids something a little bit shorter, right? If we had them run a marathon, we'd probably have them run, 5 miles instead of 26. So I think it's natural to give them like something shorter, but I don't think they needed it. I think these kids are probably 3-hour capable.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's like the opposite of attention spans in a way. They're, when it comes to blitz chess, you can play a longer series. So here we go. We're going to play the 3+1 segment. 45 minutes for Marco to get back in the match. Marco is going to lead off with Marco et Blanc, and we're going to see if he can use his Petrosian again. Maybe in those 3 minutes. In the 3 minutes, he did decide to change. Maybe he had that secret 2700 French Grandmaster on the telling phone. You never know.
Yeah.
Should be noted that I don't have any specific rules against you receiving coaching during the 3-minute break. I think I even told the players that, you're welcome to. We can't stop you from doing it, so we might as well allow it. It's like correspondence chess. They're finally like, okay, you can use computers, but actually, you can use computers in correspondence chess now.
Well, what's the point?
Well, that's a different story. We actually got a Petrosian after all, although not the same one.
Right.
This looks more like the Alice match last week.
This is the Alice match. And do you recall Rashad when he came on last time saying that Ryo was making an important mistake in these positions? He was bringing his knight to c5, which looks like a good square, but it actually gives white a tempo with a3, b4, and then drops back to a6. And remember, Alice was getting amazing positions with her queenside attack coming really fast early on.
Right.
And now we see Ryo just leading the knight on a6. The point is not to outpost on c5. It's just to restrain b4 and c5. Just to restrain.
So we had good coaching and we had good studenting. He actually listened to his coach and remembered it.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, though. If you go from not being able to play a legal game to a master in 2 years, you better listen to your coach and apply and memorize that stuff a lot.
Yeah, you must really have some learning skills down.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to go your own way and have that kind of improvement. So seriously, to the parents of Ryo, give that man a raise. That's pretty good coaching. So bishop to e3, and the king has to hide on h1. In fact, I was telling you before, David, actually, I guess bishop f2 is possible, that I witness a lot of these playoffs at U.S. championships. Something interesting happens when there's a U.S. women's playoff, because the men are usually done that play in the open section. Notice I did not say men's section. The men that played in the open section are done. So what ends up happening is this funny little pairing off where one of the women will end up getting like 3 or 4 of those male grandmasters as helpers, and then the other woman, because you have this built-in network of a dozen 2,700 players at your disposal, which becomes very interesting. And even once I was watching Nazi Pakidze play a U.S. Women's Championship playoff, and she played an idea that I clearly knew what the improvement was, but I was the journalist and I couldn't say anything because she had another game to play, and I needed to make sure I didn't like become part of the story.
Because you were interviewing her?
Yeah, so she played a game as white and a game as black, and they ended up tying. They had to play another game, and she was going to be white in the Armageddon. And
you couldn't say, do you know about the move knight to a3 on move 15?
Right, in game 1, you have this improvement, but then I thought to myself also, hey, she's an IM, I'm not. I bet number 1, she knows, and number 2, she's got 3 or 4 of those 2,700 grandmasters helping her out.
Yeah.
Okay,
right, so looking at the position, I think if we were to evaluate it, black's position is quite comfortable. His center looks strong. There's some attacking chances, but he's not overly committed to the attack. White's queenside play is not particularly powerful yet. Although with c5, he's going to try and change that. But so far, Black's position looked pretty comfortable.
Okay, so Black generally keeps the pawn here, even in variations where you can win a pawn. Sometimes you don't, because you release this pawn and then you release this diagonal and you weaken this pawn. It's not a hard and fast rule, but I remember one of my first Danker tournament of high school champions, somebody played the bayonet with the c5 pawn sacrifice, and I was like, cool, pawn, and I took it. And I lasted like 5 more moves because I didn't understand that I was playing on his side of the board when I took that pawn.
Oh, c6. He knows about the move. There was one game where Alice could have played c6 because of this idea of if Black takes the pawn, you have b5 with a fork at the end. And she didn't choose to play that way. She played something else that was pretty good, but nice to see Marco use this move c6, which can really crack Black sometimes in these positions.
Okay, instead, Black covers up this weak diagonal leading to his king. Of course, the knight can still hop here.
It's a good move here, I think, knight d5. Otherwise, Black will play knight f4, and you'll wish that you'd done it sooner.
That's true. And knight here also maybe comes with the threat of snapping and taking, although it's not that clear because c6 is weak.
Yeah, but maybe b5, and then if the knight moves, knight c7 would be really good. If bishop takes d5, queen d5 is check, and very pleasant for white.
That's true. Simpler is better. So b5 coming. I can't make the move because the computer won't let me when it's Black's turn. But you guys get the
extra
point.
moves for white. You can do almost anything.
Right. That's why
Your
sometimes
account is highly hacked.
sometimes during the broadcast, you see me make moves like king h8, and you're like, why are you playing king h8? Well, actually, king h8 has a little bit of utility here, but it's because I need to make it White's move.
Given that White's threatening knight e7 check as well, we omitted perhaps the biggest threat in our discussion of the c7 pawn. But queen f7 is a very nice move as well, fighting for that square, unless bishop c4 is too good. We'll see. But
all right,
definitely a fight around that square. Okay, he goes for the fight full on. Wow, he could have done it from f4 so that on knight f4 it wasn't check and he could play bishop takes c4. But he comes straight here. Knight comes off f1 and into the game. Okay, so I think that Ryo's advantage is gone, or his comfortable position is gone.
Ooh.
I think White's a bit better now.
Can I talk about knight takes f5? Sorry, I only interrupt you when it's important, but
No, yeah.
Can we just go back for a second and give Black a random move and talk about this move?
Yeah, that move is pretty cool. If Black even sees all your threads, he probably still can't avoid the problems. Wow, they've got 20 seconds each, Mike.
Okay, back to the game, but that was fancy. And of course, if takes,
Very
and
fancy.
you've got something like this.
Yep.
Okay, back to the game.
What's happening? Something got traded. Oh, he's opening up queen h5, which could be major. He's going to come back to f7 to deal with that, or play rook g4, bringing a new piece into the game.
Ooh, rook g7. I wonder if knight f6 first was better.
I think knight f6 looked really rough after that move. Now you should play rook g8. Just get more pieces over there. Put the queen on the square the knight wants.
Okay, he has a draw, but when you're down 6-1, you've got to find a way to convert this first game. And
I think
already
f5, trying to get the other rook into the game makes sense.
Okay, rook on b1 is hanging, so he saves
One
that.
to cover the weakness. Yeah, good move.
It's a battle of who's going to self-mate their king first.
This knight got good. This knight got really good.
And you could toggle once and gain some time on the clock, queen f8, queen f6, but this, he's just going for a straight mate. Okay.
Yeah,
where's the mate?
But queen e5 was a great defense.
Did he find a mate? He did find the mate.
He
Okay,
did. He did. The king needed to come to h6, but it would have sacked the rook.
Well, there was some
I guess it was
Euclidean
winning.
geometry in there somewhere. I know that.
Yes, it was winning. Wow.
Okay, we're going to start up game 2, and it is back to a 4-point lead. The first game was won by Marco. A reminder, he did not drop a single game in the 3-1 section against Brewington Hardaway. And David, if you want to fill some airtime, I'll go back even further in my notes and tell you what happened in the first match.
And he's repeating this opening. I don't know.
Looks like Tani won a couple of games in the 3-minute, but overall Marco has a big plus score in the 3-minute section in his first 2 matches.
I think this might be like the last game for Marco to like get on the board with Black, because he's playing, he's figured things out with White now. But if he loses the rest of his black games, he's not going to close the gap. So, and I mean, and even if he just gets like lost positions and like saves one of them with a swindle, it's not going to be enough, right? He really needs to find something that he can play with black here.
Yeah, in fact, you could do some back of the napkin math or back of the reporter's notebook math. If you hold every game as black, but it takes you 6 minutes to do so, you might be able to still win. You still might not be able to win the match, even if you win every game as white. Not that that should be your match strategy, but yeah, you got to do better as black.
Looks like he's in for another grueling game here.
Yeah, and actually,
Queen C2. Queen C2, maybe Bishop F3, similar. Like kick that knight to fight for control of D6.
If he used that 3-minute break to improve his chess and not, you get a bite to eat or something, I would have focused on my black opening more than my white. But who's to say?
Yeah. No, you're right to say. All right, so Queen D2, Rook D1, Bishop F4 coming. Something like that. I mean, if black doesn't move this D pawn soon, it's going to be a game we've seen before. I think he's thinking about Queen B6 again. I mean, that endgame went so nicely.
That's true. And we're back to the pawn not getting off the starting line yet. And if you recall back to game 4, I believe it was, or I'm sorry, game 3, because Marco started as black, this bishop was pretty much the worst bishop in the history of chess. Okay, first time we've seen the pawn come to D5, although if en passant happens, it won't be fundamentally different than some other games.
Well, let's see how this goes. It's going to be very, very tactical here the next move or two, because white could, trade and then win a pawn on C6, but the rook's going to hit the queen on B3. So see how he does it.
Yeah, I wonder. Maybe it's this is interesting. You can go for direct or completely. Well, that's not how a knight moves. You can go for direct, or you can go for indirect and increasing the pressure.
He can definitely play a move like Rook D1 first here instead of trading this.
Bishop C5 is probably legal, although Queen C7. Okay, he plays the simpler move.
He's just going to play against the C6 pawn. If Bishop D7, Bishop C5, but Marco's very close to his best position yet with black. Very, very close.
I'll agree with you there.
He's like one detail away from like escaping the opening without losing material. Queen D8, trade, Queen C6, there's Bishop B7. Looks like he might be in the game. Queen C6, there might even be Bishop D7. Trade off the knight, play Rook B2. Still a little bit worse, but in the game. All right.
Yep. And white again tries the boa constrictor approach, not trying to get his sacrifice pawn back too quickly, but instead putting his flag on the dark squares. We've been watching this since game 1 of the match.
Yeah. So here you want to play E5. Excellent. Just forget about A6, C6 and stuff. Just activate your pawn majority on the king side. F5, E4.
Okay, so you'd play F5 here.
Yeah, he might just play F6 here because he's worried about his pawn. And as I said, he's a somewhat safe player. But we really can't worry about either weak pawn A6 or C6 here. You've got an extra pawn. Don't let that pawn tie you down. Let it make you free to like put your pieces actively and not worry about maybe one pawn going.
This is almost a tactic. Again, it may not even be a pawn that you want to win, though. But the idea is that Bishop B7, Bishop takes knight, Knight C7, right. Queen takes knight. Knight here might be the fly in the ointment.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, instead, now the light square is going to be weak forever. But
he's got a structure he could play. It really just depends on the 7th rank here. Like if Rook C7 and Rook D1 to D7 is crushing, it could be a problem. But
that was interesting. He didn't keep his rook glued to the A6 pawn to answer knight takes A2 with rook takes A6. Instead, he attacked the knight. I'm not really sure what that does. The knight wanted to take anyway. I suppose you can probably pick off the A pawn at your leisure, but it's not so clear if knight B4.
Right, knight b4, rook a to a4.
Maybe you.
To c8, I think. Oh, and then rook a takes b4. Dang.
Yep. Okay, back to the live game. Knight came to b4. And Marco does have a decided time advantage.
h4 is a strong move too. It's a strong move too. You know, rook a4 is not yet going away, but this move can cramp the black king and give the white king some space. I don't actually like h6 here because the light squares are just too easy for white to create problems on for you. I would have preferred, you know, g6 or h5, something.
White's probably putting his hopes on some sort of bishop check rook discovery, but it's not so clear that there was one.
Right, and now there's even knight f2 to wonder about. Then rook c2, then rook c2. Okay.
Yeah, if Marco can win this one, that would definitely strike a blow. Not only would he get to within 3 games, but it would prove that he's figured something out.
Yeah.
Okay, bishop to d5 is the problem.
G7 is tough to defend as well. There, interesting. Okay. Oh, e4.
Okay, and there is a draw on the board. In fact, white could actually milk the clock and go for the draw.
Yeah.
The computer will
he does have to take this draw, it looks like.
Yeah, the computer will automatically call it. However, if you're white, what you do want to try and do is play as many different moves as possible to milk that clock a little bit. Our first draw of the match, and that's kind of what I was saying. If these matches, yeah, if these games go 7 minutes, which that game did, then in a way, you can afford to keep playing like that as white.
But for Marco, it's exactly what he needed too. It was like a game where he didn't lose in the opening with black. I mean, that gives some hope.
I agree. So he's down 4 games. Will he get 4 more turns with white? Typically, they play about 7 or 8 games in the 3-minute section. Well, they've already played 2. That means maybe only 3 turns as white remaining.
If you win 3 more white games,
yeah, and you have to win all your games as white too. I mean, that's obviously not going to be easy. So I think you just got to mix it up as black. He's just got to play something he's not as familiar with, then see if he can catch Ryo in something that is a surprise.
This late in the match, I don't think he's going to play a different opening for black. I think he's just going to keep playing that thing. So, he has to hope that small adjustment that he just made is enough to carry him.
Exactly. Let's ask the chat. What do you guys think would be a good backup opening for Marco to play as black? Let's hear in the chat. You're probably going to put in your favorite opening, which is cool. But tell us what opening you'd play. It can be a different version of the Sicilian, but I'm curious. Now, the players can't read the chat, so you're not actually giving real advice. But if you were the coach of Marco, I'd love to hear from you. All right. So, and you know what? Every game is rightfully taking the distance too. So in fact, if every game takes 7 minutes, there's only going to be time for 4 or 5 more. It might be a run the table scenario for Marco to get back in the finals.
Already. Okay.
Could be.
Yeah. I mean, he had chances to win that last game. He had some chances. But Ryo found the rooks to the 7th just in time. Ryo had 5 seconds against 25 as well in that endgame. So there were definitely chances for Marco there.
Reminder that the winner gets $1,000 and lessons with the top 20 grandmaster. David, I'm going to have my work cut out for me no matter who wins, because if Marco wins, as we've said in the beginning of the show, I've got to get MVL or Kramnik, the French speakers. That's pretty heady stuff. And if Ryo wins, why do I get the feeling he's going to make me get Magnus? I don't know. He's going to ask. I know that. He's welcome to ask.
Yeah, he's going to ask. He likes to make things tough for you.
But actually,
opponents, it's a good trait. It's a champion trait.
We did ask him before the show, and he said Kramnik or Anand. And actually, Anand is the chief ChessKid mentor of India. So, and Anand's also at a place in his life where he's doing more ambassadorial type stuff.
Right.
So
that's possible.
So Ryo, no promises. I know you can't hear me, but I can get you Anand. You want Anand? I got you Anand.
Right. Well, he said his name.
It's true. Maybe Hikaru.
Got suggestions of various different Sicilians. A lot of suggestions of Kalashnikov, Naidorf, Pelican. Because it's still within the realm of the Sicilian, which Marco seems to be familiar with, but avoid this one line that Ryo is really prepared.
Now, I like Teal Sour Oatmeal's comment, the England Gambit. Now, there's about 4 different jokes I'm going to make here. Number one, that only is played after d4. That's the first problem. The second one is if you tried to spell England the right way, you added an extra syllable. And the third comment I've got, David, is that's exactly how Austin Powers says it. I'm off to London, England.
And the England Gambit is actually L-U-N-D. It's not named after the country of England.
You're a good wingman. That was the exact fourth point. Okay. Now, I would, of course, I'm just having some fun here, but it does have a nice trap with it. And the other co-host I had, Mousetrap, earlier in the Speed Chess Championship, I got to be honest with you, it's like his favorite opening. He taught me the England Gambit. I know, but he's a blitz player. He's a park player, so it gets him a lot of quick wins.
Yeah. Quick wins or quick losses, one way or another, you know your fate.
Right. Well, if you listen to any of the show, he doesn't appreciate Philidor. Pawns are not the soul of chess. Pawns are speed humps in my way. Get rid of them. I don't want them.
They're disposable.
Okay, so C6 idea happening again. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know when we diverged from the previous 3-minute game or if we did at all.
Yeah, we did, because Black played King H8, Rook G8. Also, the bishops were traded on F6 instead of after Bishop G5 to E3 check. So, but the structure looks, basically the same despite that.
Right, and actually knight F4 threatened two things. It threatened knight H3 and knight takes G2. Knight takes G2, I suppose the idea was Rook G1, but then H3?
Yeah, and then he would take the bishop on D7 or the pawn on B7.
Okay.
And say, well, I can't get rid of this knight, but at least it's in the way of the queen coming to checkmate me.
Right.
And so it would be a piece sack, and Ryo was rightly not ready to give that kind of piece yet. His position can be played sort of slower, more longer term. It's a perfectly good position. I might consider even Rook B8 here. Really, I mean, it's not his move, but sort of playing the whole board with Black.
Well, now let me ask you, knight takes G2 was a threat then, correct?
Yeah, I guess the bishop's on the knight. That's awkward. Rook B8 is not an idea because the bishop takes A6.
Yeah, you know me. I want to play knight takes B4, rook takes, and play rook A1 and be some kind of hero, but it's not even close to working when white has 700 ways to block on B1.
Too much B1 control from white here.
Yes.
Ooh, it's a tense game, and it's 30 seconds each with everything left to play for. Now B5 comes into consideration because when the knight goes to C5, you have knight takes D5. It was almost like a weird situation where I couldn't see any move that white or black really wanted to play, even though it's so unbalanced.
Okay, back to the game because we've got precious few seconds left. Ryo's got a 10-second advantage.
He did play B5, and so that 10-second advantage is going to start dwindling, right? So like every move had some kind of downside. Everything was so tensely placed. Ryo's got his face in his hands with seconds on the board. Wow.
He chooses the very complicated D4, and now
we're cover E5. Can't let the whole center open.
We're seeing some vite from the Frenchman, who now has a 5-second advantage. He might need to win this one. He's certainly not winning the games as black so far.
Very good position in this one.
Couple of extra pawns. Awkward placement of his pieces, though. He's going to have to wiggle out.
Everybody's awkward. He's going to have to find a funny way out, and quickly. Oh my God, he found everything he needed.
Yeah, you know what's annoying is he found everything he needed, and it's still not that easy to convert, but it's getting closer.
Yeah, it's not easy to convert, but he's got what he needs to convert this. He does have enough here.
Okay, the black king knows no fear, and now the black rook is permanently stuck, and the knight just has to find its way to a useful square.
Yep.
So the knight just wants to get to C7, and he begins his journey. You can even go through this square if you want to.
Might be going for knight B6, C7. He
also
for
good,
3 seconds about it.
I would just play, okay, he did that. I would have just played
going for it.
Knight C5, knight E6, but okay. See, the annoying thing about this is, oh, he didn't take the queen. Okay, that's not so annoying then.
Uh-oh.
And
One premove too many.
Yeah.
C5 to B5.
And there we go. So another win is white, but he's running out of turns as white. We've already been over this. My mat strategy to just play long games as black is not the prettiest way, the most elegant way to get a victory of the Speed Chess Championship finals, but back to a Sicilian. And I think somebody in the chat brought up that you could almost transpose to an advanced French, maybe. Yeah, maybe, but none of that happened. We are seeing the same thing we've been seeing all afternoon.
I don't know why he's so stubbornly sticking to bishop b4 to e7, but he got a game last game, so I guess there. Oh my goodness, he made Ryo do something slightly different. Ryo went back to the first game's opening. First game, he played this line here. Bishop e5, rook b6.
Yeah, I think this is a carbon copy for game one. Okay, Ryo had a 5-point lead going into the 3-minute. Now it's fair to say he's nursing the lead. It's down to 3 points, but 21 minutes on the match clock. And as I said, do some math. I don't think Marco's got 3 more turns as white. So he's going to have to find a way to win a game as black. And he's going back to the very opening minutes of the match, where I think this exact position.
I do like that he had 2 minutes and 58 seconds on his clock. He was doing the speed he needed to. And now he's playing Babayev's suggestion to maneuver this position with knight d7, bishop f6.
Exactly right. And in fact, it could be played right now. It is played. Let's see if white will keep the bishop.
Doing it so fast. What's the match clock, Mike? What's the match clock?
We've got 20 minutes and some change remaining. And you're exactly right. He might want to win as black and win a 4-minute game, not a 7-minute game.
Yeah. It's still a match then. This is intense. I mean, I like white's position, you know, with or without this bishop f6 maneuver. But, you know, he's putting some pressure on Ryo to find the best continuation in some tricky positions.
I was wondering if Ryo would play c4 just as a sacrifice in it and play his knight to c5 or something.
Yeah. I was wondering about the exact same thing.
But in a way, you turn the tables on your opponent because he's been the one sacrificing a pawn in every Sicilian to get activity.
All right, knight on d7 is hanging. That's why e5 is playable and can't be taken. Now he should probably take on d6, in my opinion, but I guess he doesn't have to.
I have a different
d5
opinion.
is not a big problem.
Can you play this way?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay, he played bishop f3. And rook c8 looks like it loses a pawn for nothing.
Yeah,
but d5 runs
an
into
option
c4.
really, but then d5 c4 doesn't look like an option either. So what is the option? What is the option?
Yeah, no great way to sacrifice the exchange that I can see. Oh, I think the bishops are carving up the rook. We actually went over this in game one, how the bishops might use their scissor effect. And that's kind of what's happening here.
Ouch. I mean, d5, c4, it's not just a pawn, it's the bishop just getting loose. That light-squared bishop is just going to be partying.
There is a call, by the way, David, in the chat for pizza. Now, did you offer the fans pizza? I don't think I did.
No, it wasn't me.
Okay.
They got pranked. They got pranked. No
that's actually the prize. Not $1,000, but 1,000 slices of pizza.
Actually, more than $1,000, right? Pizza's usually...
c4 is at least interesting. I didn't see it. It gives the rook a new home on c5.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
It is a move. I don't see how it still saves his d6 pawn, though. After pawn takes pawn, you know, the rook can go to c5, and then the bishop can come to, you know, e1 for all I care. And I still don't see how to cover the d6 square.
Okay. What if the thought is knight c5? I realize it's simply a move. It's just a move. I don't know if it does anything.
So the queen moves somewhere, and then the rook is still attacked. So let's say queen d4. And if the rook retreats, we still lose the d6 pawn with everything else along with it.
Doesn't solve any problem, does it?
The entire center of the board that pawn represents.
Well, interestingly, it did cost Ryo something in the neighborhood of 40 seconds or so. But this may not be a position where you need a ton of time to convert because you're going to be up an armada of pawns.
Yeah. 3 connected passed pawns. Well, if he can connect them, I suppose at the moment c5 is blockaded, but he's also got like bishop c7 kind of stuff. I mean, that queen's almost trapped. Or rook b1 to b7. I mean, it's scary. All right, rook b1 here is good.
Yeah, I don't even see how you can complicate the position that much as black.
It seems like on rook b1, queen a2. Oh, queen a2, there's no rook a1, so that's why he's going to think for a moment there.
Okay, got himself
grab that
past a
pawn.
pawn, but he's almost certainly going to lose an exchange whenever white wants to play bishop to b7.
And Ryo is now playing like Marco, eliminating the counterplay before he goes in for the kill.
You can't even play rook takes c7 because you only get, well, you got to take this way. But wait a minute, bishop takes. What's the idea?
Takes.
Okay. Maybe you could have played rook takes c7 there. I think you needed to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're not, after rook takes, you're not losing the knight. You have time to play pawn g6,
But on
king
rook
g7.
c7, there would have been c5 as well.
Gotcha, and he won by resignation.
C6 coming. Yeah, he doesn't want to waste any time if he thinks he's lost.
I guess you're right.
Play more games. He needs to play more games at this point. That's rare, sort of, for anybody, much less a kid, to have a sense of like the whole match. And sometimes I just need to move on if I'm behind.
Exactly right, but that pushes the lead back to
it.
pushes the lead back to 4 games.
I don't see the board.
Okay, we'll fix it, Ryo. Click refresh on your screen. Let's pause the match clock, please.
I pressed it, but
Okay, let's bring Ryo back. Ryo, we're just going to let this game run out. And David, if you'll inform Marco that we've paused the match clock, I don't want him worried that this is going to somehow count. And then Ryo, we will restart this game and it won't count.
okay.
So we just have to wait for our server to get smart and realize that we are not trying to play this game. Click refresh on your browser, just in case that helps a little bit, right?
How much time is in the match for me to tell Marco when it was paused?
The last time I looked,
or
yeah, I'll get
17?
some word from my producer here, but I think it was in the
15.
18 minutes range. 15, exactly. Okay, we're coming back very shortly. This is the finals of the 2020 ChessKid Youth Speed Chess Championship. FIDE Master Marco Materia, #1 seed, against #2 seed National Master Ryo Chen. Ryo has 15 minutes remaining and is currently up by 4 games. So we are just waiting for this game to absolve itself on the server, to go away, to be jettisoned. Need some more synonyms here, David. To be bowdlerized. That's a weird one. I think it's accurate, though. Bowdlerized, can I say that? That's a journalism word, though. Redacted. And I don't know why the game has not been abandoned by our server yet.
Wow, it's just, yeah, the server's not with it on this one.
It's an unexpected 3-minute break, but not to worry. We all need a cheese course in France, so hopefully Marco's taking advantage and having a nice gorgonzola. Okay, we're just waiting for this to time out, and then we're going to play 15 more minutes of chess. Marco will get white when we restart. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is game 12 coming up. Okay, so Ryo, if you can still hear me, let's clear that game out. Just go back to your live chess home screen. Okay, that game was abandoned. Got it. Okay, I'm going to ask. Yeah, I think the game is like hung up on our server. Okay, now I think it's gone. So I'm going to ask my staff to restart that game. Marco taking white. And then when that happens, Ryo, you'll need to get rid of your system audio whenever the game starts. Okay, it looks like it's starting. And Marco has made a move. Ryo has responded.
And Ryo's in there too. All right.
Yep. And he's messed up. He's turned off his system audio. He is a whiz with the controls. Okay, 15 more minutes and a 4-game lead. It is time to get moving. If you're
you think that, do you see Ryo kind of going up and down a tiny bit?
That's his usual cadence, I think, right?
Usual cadence.
Yeah.
Got a little extra excitement as we hit the home stretch.
I do think he's actually still during his games, but for what the viewers don't see is in our pre-match, sort of getting our tech ready, he's pretty excitable, I'll put it that way. Okay, now he's doing his Nakamura stare at the ceiling. Are there any moves on your ceiling, David?
No.
Okay.
But I guess that would be a great way to like paste up some opening prep.
Well, I dream about chess. I'm not proud of it, but it does happen. And the last thing I want to do is wake up and look at chess on my ceiling. Do you dream about chess?
Of course, yeah.
Have you ever had the dream, any dream, where as soon as you woke up, you had to set up that position because you couldn't figure out something in the analysis in your dream and you had to set it up?
It's the opposite. In my dreams, I solved the positions that I couldn't solve when I was analyzing during the day.
Legitimate positions you solve, or just like, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever done a study on chess and dreams? Because I'm sure if it's happening to us, it's happening to all chess players.
Some of my best chess dreams, I've played entire tournaments, and I wake up and I know the score for like all 6 rounds of like a weekend Swiss.
Are you being serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's like the best, because you didn't have to leave your home, you didn't have to spend any money, fly on an airplane, nothing, right? And in my head, I've played like a tournament against all kinds of other people that I would normally travel to play against.
Well, that's like next level. Now, in your dream, when you're beating Korchnoi, what happens?
Never beat Korchnoi in my dreams. My dreams aren't unrealistic,
Right.
Like,
They're not
they're very realistic.
They're not nightmares. Okay, so what have we got here?
I lose at a normal rate, make blunders at a normal rate.
In my dreams, I'm playing fun chess online, and I make the mistake of checking my email and getting deflated. Oh yeah, I've got real work to do. Okay, so the king hides on h8, but really this is for the rook's benefit, not the king. Not much danger on the diagonal, but the rook really wants g8. In fact, it happened as soon as I said it.
Yeah, it's also great against the c5, c6 kind of thing. So that was Ryo's adaptation last game, was moving the king to h8 and rook to g8 quickly. So this is very similar, if not exactly, the game they had last time.
It might very well be, but if it is the exact game, that doesn't explain Ryo's being down a minute on the clock and spending 2 minutes up to this point.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I'm not 100% sure if it's the same is the knight being on d1 instead of c3.
We should make sure these games make the databases. I feel like they've advanced Petrosian theory a little bit.
It's true. You could rename this event the Petrosian Theory Showdown.
Yeah. In fact, if you put these games in a database and somebody buys like Megabase, they're probably going to think that they're all, repeat positions. Like, oh, who put the same game in my database 17 times? But
yeah, I'm pretty sure knight d1 is a new move, because I seem to recall there was some line with knight f4, king h1, and if knight takes g2, there was rook g1. So
indeed. Now is the knight still going to f4?
Went like this. I don't know. No, I don't think there was a knight covering g2. I think the knight was on c3 last game. So there's a small adaptation from Marco, but that small adaptation has cost Ryo a lot of thinking time. This looks nice. If g3, knight g3 looks like a very, very clean, not sacrifice, like it just wins.
h2?
Queen g1.
Queen g1 is better than h2?
Yeah.
That's why they pay me the small bucks. Now, that was one case where I wasn't just setting up David for a teachable moment. That was me at the end of a broadcast, hanging mate in one.
Hanging mate in one.
Yeah. Full disclosure, kids.
Hey, that makes you very honest. So everybody appreciates that. So
in my dreams, I find Queen G1. I'll have a dream tonight about Queen G1.
Queen G1, Queen G1. How could I mess up my broadcast so badly? Come on, Mike. Queen G1.
That's it. We're ending the show. This is never going to be seen on demand again. We're done.
Right. Done. Cut. Delete it all. It never happened. Okay, all right, so the sack of g2 for f5 is a new style of position we have yet to see. This is pretty interesting. The danger for white is knight f4 to h3, even with queens off the board.
I really wanted hero move in this position after takes. I wanted knight here, but bishop takes and the mate is messed up.
Yeah.
There's still no
need to rush it that way, There's no need to rush it, even in the endgame. It's a thing. Knight g3, nice.
Yeah, you had to give away the exchange
game at least. But it looks like black could take the c5 pawn now. He's kind of like assuming that he never wants to take on c5. But if you're in an endgame up an exchange, take that pawn. Take that pawn. It is rightfully yours.
It's going to be tough for black to hold this. Well, I say hold, black's up material, but with only 7 seconds left and knight's running all around the chessboard, I'm not even sure it's a winning position anymore. Well, even before you lose the rook.
I guess now it's a winning position for white instead of black. So the time that it costs black to deal with that come to like G1. Yes! Nice play. Wow.
Yeah. King E3 would have walked into a mate. Glad that didn't happen. Oh, but you can't play it. Well, you can enter a, yeah, you can play it this way. Okay, but it's going to be, I think, too little too late for Marco.
Okay, is there not enough time here?
Well, there's going to be time for at least 2 more games, but unfortunately for him, he's down 4.
Okay.
Okay, this is one way
Time
to
has
win.
run out.
Yeah, and now if you're Ryo, you absolutely should play to checkmate. And he is. That's smart. Not only is there no rule against this, but in this scenario, I think you, I mean, I would, I'll put it that way. I absolutely would play all the way to mate. All right, and there we go. Marco is leading the 3-minute segment. He's picked up 2 games. However, he entered this segment down 5. So we move on to, I believe, game 13, but the number of round does not matter as much as the score. Marco is down 3 games with 8 minutes left to play.
The decisive idea then, if Marco's run out of time to catch up in the match, the decisive idea was last game with white Ryo when he found bishop f3 hitting that rook and if d5 c4. I mean, his whole central idea with e5 bishop f3 and just cracking the center there was really fantastic.
Yeah, in fact, if you think about the fact that you are in control of your own block of 3 minutes, really, if you get into a situation where the amount of time remaining is within your control, you could just sit there and not make a move. I mean, that'd be a really weird way to win a match, but
like if you don't even need to take 2 or 3 minutes off the opponent's clock.
Yeah, if there's
run out
5
the
minutes,
match.
59 seconds left and you're up 3 games, you could literally just start the game and not make a move. But of course, you could also make a bunch of moves and even get in a losing position and gain 40 more seconds on the clock. So it reminds me of that situation, and I'm not sure if you're a National Football League fan, American football, but sometimes you get in a situation where like a team is up by 1 point and it's 4th down and there's 7 seconds left in the game. So they could punt the ball, but that does give the very minute risk of the other team running it back the entire way. So one thing they sometimes do is they snap the ball to the quarterback and he just has to run around for 7 seconds without getting tackled. But
Okay.
he has to
So he plays keep away instead of football for a minute.
Exactly. He absolutely has to make sure he doesn't get tackled in those 7 seconds, though. So another idea, by the way, is to run around for 4 seconds and then throw the ball as high as you can in the air because there's going to be 4 seconds of loft. Do I want to be an NFL coach? Yes, I do.
Sounds like it. Sounds like you've thought about it a lot.
Well, you know what I think? I
Do you
really
dream
want.
about that?
I do. I want every NFL team, including the Carolina Panthers, to have somebody on their team who's a clocks coach, which means when the game gets down to 2 minutes, his only job is to calculate these various things for the head coach, because the head coach has to worry about substitutions and play calling and all that stuff. You can see, if anybody from the Carolina Panthers is watching, hire me.
Give him a
I
call.
will solve your clock problems.
Give him a call. ChessKid will go to ruin, but you will occasionally get to throw a ball really high at the end of a game.
Go to ruin? No. We would have the chesskid.com field in Charlotte. We would get the naming rights. We would have our own skybox.
Oh, you've got the bandwidth to do both.
We would play live chess on ChessKid on the Jumbotron at halftime. I got this all worked out, David. You just give me $20 million and ChessKid will have the market cornered on athletics.
You're not the first person who's told me you just give me $20 million and everything will be great.
How did it work out for the first people that asked you for it?
I never found out.
Okay. Well, we're back to the pawn structure from game
Thank
one.
goodness I didn't have $20 million to send them.
I know. I once had 20 million, what's the Korean currency? Dong. No, that's Vietnamese. But I've had various Asian currencies I've had 20 million of.
I think, WON.
Yeah. Now, Black has this cup of pawns here, which he had in game one, but he's correctly trying to mix it up with this H5, H4 idea. But checking the match clock, I just don't see a scenario where this game and 2 more are played.
White is so nice with his with his like bishop pair and his pieces covering the whole board. I don't know. I love it. Rook f1 to cover the f4 pawn is necessary, but other than that, you can do a lot of cool stuff with white here.
Got a funny quote from Smiley Quokka in chat. Says, 8 seconds in football, because of all the timeouts and commercials and everything, is 8 hours in regular time.
Longer than this entire match.
Well, actually,
This
it's kind
is a
of true
blitz
in
match.
it's true in
Bishop
chess
h3
also,
is
right?
threatened. Gotta watch out.
But at least in football, the clock doesn't count up like in chess. So
Move. That's going to send the black pieces retreating, I think. I guess it's retreat or die. Yeah, he chooses to retreat. Now e5 is begging.
and it happened.
Rio's well acquainted with pawn breaks. Now after the bishop moves, he's going to play f5 as well. Just keeping that, living in that tension.
Yeah, and
Let's go, Ryu. Nice move, man. Nice
the white
move.
pieces are very harmonious in this position.
Oh, they're so beautiful.
Whereas the black rooks are biting on rock. The knight h5, it's not clear if it's ever going to have a future.
Vicious, vicious f5.
Well, this is how you close out a match. Pawn takes pawn is the threat, and then f7 will die the death of 1,000 cuts, or really just die the death of every one of white's pieces.
Yep.
But Ryo's trying to close this out in style and win 1,000 big ones, and then we'll have to get Anand on the phone. So Vishy, if you're watching, don't go anywhere. Actually, after he was stuck in Germany for 3 months, not able to get back to his family, I'm guessing he's not going anywhere for a while. He's probably very happy to be in Chennai.
On queen e6, pawn takes pawn check would have removed the queen's defense. So he was sent all the way back. Oh, and here there's bishop d5. A proper nail in the coffin of this game. That was clinical, Ryo. I mean, he really knows how to use the bishop pair.
That was probably the best example of how the bishop pair in that version of the Sicilian was an advantage. So we're looking at last game. I will inform the players. And it is looking like the American, the number 2 seed, will perform the mini upset and beat the number 1 seed FIDE Master Marco Materia and take the very first 2020 ChessKid Youth Speed Chess Championship. We're watching to see what's going to happen in this final game. I feel like I've watched enough Petrosians for a lifetime, although if I had to watch the same opening over and over, this has been one of the more exciting ones.
I think Marco's won 3 or 4 in a row at this point with white in this King's Indian. So, that, I mean, that's really a testament to his strength, that even in a match that wasn't going well for him, he was able to, play this so well and find this point of strength. And it also means that Ryo will still have something to learn in some of those lessons he's winning. Absolutely
right. Very good insight. And you're spot on, David. The last 4 games as white, Marco has won. He's going to try to make it 5 in a row here. But I think the theme of this match, the deciding factor, was how the bishop pair and the strength of the dark squares, every single game as white, Ryo was just getting consistent advantage after advantage. Okay,
yeah, Marco's Sicilian needs to go into the shop. I mean, he couldn't even go to a tournament next week with it like this, right? Because everybody would just copy what Ryo did. Ryo's beaten him both in the knight takes c6, knight b6 variation, where you just grab the bishop pair, and in the c4 variation, where he sacks the e-pawn and plays c5 and cramps black. He was dominant in both positions. Honestly, he was, had either one to choose from. And that just means Marco doesn't have a defense to e4 right now.
And this question gets asked a lot, especially at the end of like an NBA finals, where one team has had to play a couple of game 7s and the other team has gone, 4-0, 4-0. But I'm going to ask Ryo after the match if having the close match in the semifinals helped him a little bit, because honestly, Marco has breezed through the first 2. And he's taken out quality players, Tawny and Brinken, some of America's best. He was trying to basically decimate the entire American squad in his first 3 rounds. But he's come up against a challenge he could not overcome in the form of Ryo Chen.
All right, knight g5. instead of taking time on h4, knight f6, h5, so there's a small difference there with the knight placement. Oh, and a tactic associated with it. Knight h3 is well played.
Okay, that
All
time
right.
I saw queen g1 mate, in fairness to me.
Excellent. Everybody's improving today. We're all learning stuff.
And there's big chance of Ryo in the chat, 4,650 people, including Moldy Tofu. Now, you are after my heart with any talk of vegetarianism, but Moldy Tofu might be a bridge too far, unless that's the ChessKid username you were given. It's possible, right? If that's your ChessKid,
most of these names are ChessKid names. How about acceptable cheddar? Is that an acceptable food for you?
It is. And in fact, anybody who's got one adjective, one noun, I know that their name on the website is at least about 2 years old, because that's when we ran out of adjective noun names. We had to go adjective noun. So I know that you've been on our website for a while. Telling Moose, I know you watch every one of my broadcasts. Thank you very much, Telling Moose. And to all of the other fans, including my boss, Carrie Fan, welcome. It's good to have you here. Thanks for supporting the cause. I see queen c8, but rook back to
Black's
d8.
got d8 covered, so there's no tactic here.
Okay.
Ryo is holding it together with Black for the first time in several games, so that's very nice for him to play a good King's Indian, because that was the one thing we were saying where there looked like some room for work.
And you know what's funny is sometimes I get kids that tell me, even adults, they tell me their username and it's super weird, and I'm like, I can give you a different one, and they're like, no, I like it. I mean, it's weird, but I've come attached to it. So
yeah, I think everyone gets attached to their name.
How did you pick yours? Did the website pick it for you and you just stuck with it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's been a really long time, Mike, but I'm pretty sure I picked it. Okay. I followed the pattern of the names, but I picked what I wanted my name to be.
Right, because the 3 biggest ChessKid usernames in the early days were Playful Squirrel, Pink Hamster, and Papa Bear. Now, Papa Bear, I guess Papa is an adjective, kind of, and a bear. I mean, you're modifying the word. Okay, we'll talk about language lessons later, but I bucked the trend. I came in with the nickname Fun Master.
Yeah.
Okay, now the knight just wants to get anywhere to remove the blockade, and that's where it's headed. It's going to go to c4. And we'll see if Marco can somehow prove that knight, rook, and passed pawn are better than queen. It might be a situation where the queen takes and goes for perpetual.
Queen d2 to g5 could be.
Ooh.
Oh,
queen a2,
this
but
one, there's king h3 and knight c6. So.
Right. In fact, he might promote first. Like he's going to play knight c6 first.
Oh, he should probably promote first.
Yeah. Now queen f1.
Either way, there's queen f1 to f2, right? That's.
Yeah, I think Black's playing for the win now. Black's down a piece, but has 3 pawns for it. Does that walk into a mate? I mean, f4. He played h4. Okay. Got to go backward.
Uh-oh. This is mate. It is mate with this way. h4 was correct.
Okay, so if he went to king h3, what's the mate?
Queen takes f3 and then queen g4.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, very good. Pretty amazing.
A great finish by Ryo.
And how did I know that Ryo would unmute himself first and could not wait to get back in the chat? How did I know that?
Before the match could even end, he's like, hey, is the match over?
Okay, so I see 1, 2, 3.5 points and 1, 2, 3.5 points. So it looks like it's going to end up being a tie in the 3-minute section, but that makes the final score 9.5 to 4.5 in favor of Ryo. Ryo, congratulations on winning the ChessKid Youth Speed Chess Championship.
9.5, 6.5?
9.5 to 4.5. How do you feel?
Good.
Marco, congratulations on 2nd place in a very good tournament. I'll have David translate.
Marco, félicitations sur ta 2e place dans un tournoi très fort.
Merci.
Ryo, one of the biggest questions of the match, if I can just have you stay with me for a minute. I know you want to text all your friends and make a TikTok video about this, but you got great positions as white in almost every game. Was that something that, were those positions something that you felt comfortable with before the match?
Of
Yeah.
course, else I wouldn't play it.
Okay, but the pawn sacrifice, how did you learn that pawn sacrifice? Where you lose the E pawn, but you get control of the dark squares. This is where you say, Coach Rashad Babayev, the best chess coach in the world. This is me telling you the correct answer.
I thought you want me to answer.
I know, but you always take my job, so now I'm taking your job.
Yeah. Russia.
David, it happened. We made him speechless. We did it. We win.
Okay,
Yeah, you won, Mike.
Did you feel any pressure in the 3-minute segment when he started winning games as white, Ryo?
I knew that I was ahead by like 5 points.
Gotcha. And so you felt pretty comfortable with that buffer?
Well, obviously, I would like to win more, but win more of the games, but I just blundered some.
David, I'm curious how Marco spent the 3-minute break is what I mean to say. Do you want to ask him that if he was looking at chess?
Marco, quand il y avait la pause de 3 minutes entre les parties de 5 minutes et les parties de 3 minutes, qu'est-ce que tu as fait avec ta petite pause là?
J'ai marché un peu et je me suis reposé.
Okay, he walked a bit and rested.
Okay, so no chess studying or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Marco, how will you spend your big money? You won $500 this match, and if you count your other winnings, you won more than $1,000. So, David, maybe you can ask Marco how he plans to spend all of his money.
Thank you for inviting me first of all.
Oh, you're welcome, Ryo. But we'll talk more in just a second. I'm not done with you, Ryo. Okay, but I'm just asking Marco this question.
So Marco, avec ces matchs, tu as gagné beaucoup d'argent. Est-ce que tu as des plans, ce que tu veux faire avec?
Non.
No plans yet.
No thoughts yet. Okay.
Est-ce que tu penses que tu vas le sauver ou le dépenser sur quelque chose?
Bah, le sauver.
Okay, so when I press him, he thinks he's probably going to save the money as opposed to using it.
Very smart. Okay, and Ryo, you can't say you're going to save it all. If you have to buy one thing, okay, what are you going to buy?
I don't know.
All right. What about investing? Are you investing in the market? Can you give me any kind of tips?
No.
Okay, make sure you give a coach a raise, though, okay? Make sure you do that. Make sure you take him out to dinner, okay? All right, now.
After the virus.
Yeah.
All the restaurants are closed.
Right. I'll take you out to any expensive steakhouse that's not open. Now, Ryo, I did ask you before the match if you won, who you would like to give you lessons. And you said Anand or Kramnik. Why did you, what's that? Why did you pick those players?
Because like they were like also good coach.
Okay, but there's a lot of great players. I mean, do you like their style or do you like their personalities, or is there anything more that you like about those two specifically?
Like not just those two. I only said two.
Okay, but you'd probably be happy with a lot more than just those two.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go list everything.
Okay, well, you're not really giving away any secrets. I think you probably respect all the players. And if we can get Magnus, would you say yes to Magnus?
Maybe, but he's probably not going to be coming.
Okay, well, you are very pragmatic about what's probably likely to happen, but
he says maybe so that his heart can't be broken, right? I mean, that makes sense.
But we could totally misquote him in the article. Do you want Magnus? Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like Magnus,
Please
we
don't
don't
put
know.
that in the article.
Ryo, I'm kidding. Okay, I only misquote adult chess players. I try to protect the kids. Okay.
Journalistic integrity just for kids.
Right. Ryo, did you enjoy this Speed Chess Championship match, or was it a lot of stress?
I enjoyed it.
You did? Okay. And
Ask Marco the same.
Yeah, go ahead.
Marco, tu t'es plu dans ces matchs? Ça t'a amusé de participer dans ce tournoi?
Oui.
Yeah, he enjoyed it too.
Marco, you're a pretty talkative kid. Would you ever consider a career in chess commentating?
He's muted, but he doesn't know it, I think.
Yeah, you got to unmute yourself. You're a little too happy with the Zoom buttons there. Unmute yourself, Ryo. We can't hear you.
Act up a little. We could try to read his lips.
Yeah. Got to say your answer again. Would you ever want to be a chess commentator or streamer?
Oh, I thought you were asking Marco.
No, I'm asking you.
I don't know.
Okay, well, you're a little more talkative. That's why I was asking you. David, do you have any questions for Ryo or Marco?
I guess I guess I could ask either of them what sort of tournaments we can start in English and I'll translate into French, like what kind of tournaments they have planned with the pandemic. Well, I'll ask Marco since Ryo ran away.
Lost Ryo.
Marco, puisqu'il n'y a pas des tournois normaux ces jours-ci avec COVID, quels sont tes plans? Où est-ce que tu vas jouer aux échecs dans les prochains mois?
En vrai,
Est-ce que tu as des tournois ou des événements?
J'en sais rien.
Rien? Rien que tu saches de planifier?
Non, parce que c'est dans longtemps.
Okay. Yeah, he says he's got nothing planned right now, unfortunately.
Okay. And what about you, Ryo? When tournaments start taking place again, what plans do you have?
Of course, I'm gonna go to the tournament.
Okay. Which tournament are you missing the most? Is it one of the Scholastic Nationals or is it the World Open? Or which tournament would you have loved to have gone to if you could?
You mean assuming no COVID?
Yeah.
The big ones?
Okay. Pretty amorphous answer. Ryo, what are your goals in chess? Like, where do you think this game's going to take you?
World champion.
World champion. Okay. Well, you got a very supportive couple of parents and your coach to be able to get you there. So just remember, don't forget the little guys when you make it there, okay? It's very hard to get interviews at the World Championship with the players because they sequester themselves almost like there is a COVID. So Ryo, when you win the World Championship, who gets the first interview?
You.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh.
Very gracious.
You can be gracious too.
Do you want to ask Marco the same question, David? What are his goals in chess?
Yeah. Marco, quels sont tes buts ou qu'est-ce que tu vas accomplir dans les échecs?
Bah, déjà, maître international et puis grand maître.
Okay. So first, international master, and then grandmaster.
Stepping stones, okay. And then maybe world champion. Yeah. Somebody put a funny note in the chat. We may have to explain to Marco, what is his prize equivalent in francs?
But they use euros now. And
I was just going to say, yeah, that's a very dated question. I'm quite sure he does not know the answer because he's never used francs in his entire life.
It's true. He would never have used francs. He wouldn't even know what you're talking about.
Right. I've asked the chat. If anybody has any questions, you can type them here. But the first couple of questions, we've already asked them. How do you feel? And then somebody's asking, if we give Ryo a lesson with Magnus, does he think he can beat him? I'm not going to ask Ryo that question. I mean, let's be deferential to the world champion. I mean, these are kids we want to be nice to, but, you know, Magnus has achieved a little bit in the chess world. So,
yeah. I could see Magnus being mad if he saw like a clip on Twitter of Ryo saying he could beat him.
Yeah. But Magnus is right now, he's in a boat chilling in the Mediterranean Sea playing some legends of chess. So, and actually, yeah, let me just close by asking, do you think if we had one of these tournaments again, you would like to play? Ryo, would you like to play this again?
Of course.
Okay. How about stream with me? Like be my co-host in a stream. Would you like to co-host with me?
Maybe.
Maybe. Another maybe, okay? I'm going to pin you down one day, my friend. Now, we actually have ChessKid in French, David. So in a hypothetical situation, you want to ask Marco if he'd like to stream with you in French, since you both speak French?
OK. Marco, est-ce que ça t'intéresserait peut-être de faire des streams en français sur les échecs avec moi?
Ouais.
On pourrait commenter des parties ou, je sais pas, jouer contre des autres enfants sur ChessKid.
Ouais, mais c'est quand?
He asks when it would be scheduled for.
Oh,
Je sais pas, c'est juste une idée.
Ah ouais.
cool. Well, maybe we'll get to that later. And
Yeah, let's do that, Mike.
that'd be fun. Somebody's asking in the chat something about lessons with Maxime. I do want to say Maxime's probably the nicest guy in the top 20, and well, probably longer than none, but a couple of the guys are great. But Maxime was actually considering giving lessons despite his very busy schedule. So that won't take place, of course, because Ryo won. But I do want to give a shout out to my friend Maxime, he's kind of the yes man. When you ask him for something, he's giving of his time, he's giving of his energy. So I do want to thank Maxime. And I have a feeling he's got so much national pride, he'll probably help Marco out. If Marco ever picks up the phone and asks him about something, I'm sure he would take Marco's call. So. But it's probably time to end the show. We've got other exciting events on chess.com/TV coming up. I want to thank both players for an excellent match today as Ryo bounces up again. I want to thank David Pruce, International Master, Playful Squirrel. When is your next branch-to-branch show?
Tomorrow morning from 7 to 8 a.m. Pacific.
Very good. 7 to 8 a.m. Pacific. So bright and early for a lot of our West Coasters. My next show is going to be Tuesday, I believe at 2 p.m. Pacific. Fun Master Mike and the Brewmaster, he's coming back. We're going to try to get a lot of these players from the Speed Chess Championship to do some shows with us because we can learn a lot from them, and they're so cute at this age. I say that because this is like the last year where I have a chance of beating any of these players. When they go from 10 to 11, they're not cute anymore. They're just killers.
They're just killers.
Yeah. Thanks to all my staff as well. ChessKid Girl, I had some help from AZ Michelle earlier, and of course my producer Alex. You did great. This was a lot of fun. 3 straight weekends of very competitive chess. This is the crowning moment of the ChessKid year, so I want to thank everybody that was involved, all of the viewers. And David, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I can't wait till next year, Mike. So please plan another awesome ChessKid event.
I will. Maybe we'll do it more than once a year. You never know. And for my American friends out there, we've got a very big tournament coming up August 8th through 9th for anybody in kindergarten through 6th grade. It is the US ChessKid Online Elementary Championship. So if you just completed anything through 6th grade, which means rising 7th grade or below, you can compete in that tournament. We'd love to see it. We've already got about 550 kids registered for this tournament that's going to be nationwide. You've got to be attending school in the US to be eligible for that tournament. So I am so thankful for this final day. It was great. Thanks again to all the players and my co-hosts throughout the match, Playful Squirrel, and earlier in the match, Mousetrap. Thank you. And don't forget, Branch to Bench tomorrow, 7 a.m. on David Pruce's Twitch channel. Goodbye for now.